So what I'm doing here is going through the Twitter threads I updated throughout the year of 2023 on all the media I consume. There's 4 threads in total. Movies, TV shows, video games, and books and podcasts. Books and podcasts are together because I listen to audiobooks due to my vision impairment. It's a little harder for me to read a normal book like everyone else, so I just put those 2 in the same category. And I'm gonna see if my opinion has altered or changed entirely since I've engaged with the media. After reading what I originally wrote and giving some more thoughts about it, I'll either regrade it to what I think it is now or keep it the same as the original score I gave, if I still think it's valid. I go by a simple 1 out of 10 score to make things as easy to understand as possible, but I do add a 0.5 in there if it sits between 2 different scores, and I'm rather indecisive at times, so that might happen a good bit. There is one rule I should mention. I will subtract the score by 0.5 automatically if I barely remember anything about it, because if it wasn't memorable enough, it probably doesn't deserve the original score I gave it. Though, to be fair, I do have an awful memory at times, because most of the movies and shows I watched were enjoyed in the late hours of the night, between 1 and 3 a.m. So, give me a little grace in that. All these reviews are on my Discord server as well. You can look at it on the top shelf section of my channel if you want to look there to find all the reviews in one coherent place. They aren't organized by movies, games, and books and all that. It's just all in one channel. But anyways, so this is a thread of all the threads that I made of the media consumed through 23. So we're going to start with movies right here, and then I also give a little synopsis of what I thought of the years in general. I said I watched a lot of variety, maybe a bit too much mainstream stuff. I think I'll aim to watch some deeper cuts for 2024 and become a more cultured individual with the media I partake in. It gotta sound like I'm smart, Alright, so the first movie I started with was Monster Hunter Legends of the Guild. It was a bad movie, It just wasn't that good. What I said was, it's a bad movie. It goes at breakneck speeds. Like, I'm talking, this movie was just snapping. It felt like it was made for Cocomelon kids, the animation's super stiff, which is weird because I remember a few segments to where I couldn't fully express my thoughts because of the Twitter character limitations. Anyways, so because there was like some moments to where the animation was like, oh, okay, that wasn't bad. That was kind of nice. And then other times you're like, these people are rock statues. Why are they so awful looking? And it's like the fight scene, but the art style was a little redemptive. 2 out of 10. I don't remember the story, like, almost at all, but I remember watching it, but I feel like that goes into the category, so I'm going to give it a 1.5. It's getting that subtraction already, right off the bat. We're starting off poorly. I mean, this was also watched back in January 15th. This was the first movie in January that I watched in January, and so that was 12 months ago. So, that's fair, I feel like. Alright, Kung Fu Panda 3. I haven't seen, when I saw this movie, I hadn't seen it in a while. I only saw it once in theaters. I remember loving it. I was like, wow, that was a cool, great movie. And then I feel like my opinion kind of changed on it a good bit for the second rewatch, because it just didn't hold up as well. It felt like the pacing was awkward, a little clunky. I still really liked it, but it didn't feel as solid of a film as the first movie did, and I just don't. I need to rewatch the second one, but I remember just not liking the second Kung Fu Panda. I remember basically everything. Well, not everything, but I remember the general story of Kung Fu Panda 3. So 7.5. I still think that's valid. I would maybe lower it to a 7, just because the pacing just really hurt it for me. But we're gonna stick with 7.5. Lemonade Mouth. Okay, I know a lot of people find this like a really iconic movie. It's like part of their childhood or whatever. I don't care. It was not a good movie. Like, right here. So I said for a movie, a 4. I'm cutting that down. It was a 2. It just was not a good movie at all. It was so generic. It was stupid. There was really nothing good about it. I think I added like maybe one song onto my Spotify, but that's about it. For a Disney Channel movie, honestly, I've gone back and watched other Disney Channel movies in the past, not this year, but in previous years, and I like them more. Like, I forget what it is. I think it was Future House or something house like that. It was Smart House. It was Smart House. It's a terrible movie, but I still liked it. It was still enjoyable. For a Disney Channel movie, because of that comparison there, I'm gonna knock it down to a 5. I think the only reason people liked it is because it had a couple people like Bridget Mendler, and I'm forgetting the guy who plays Luther from Zeke and Luther. So it had some recognizable faces. I think that's just kind of why kids adopted to it so much. Anyways, oh, okay, Missing. Fantastic movie. Like, so I would consider this one of the must-see movies of 2023. It got kind of left behind because it came out in January. You know, January movies just typically don't do all that well because most people are recovering from the holidays. So not everyone's like, oh, I gotta go see a movie now. But it was a sequel to the film Searching, and if you have not seen either one of these movies, you are missing out. They're not connected in any real significant way, so you can watch them in whatever order. I would say Searching is better, but Missing is just as good. It's just I preferred Missing. I mean, I preferred Searching just a little bit more based off of the topic alone. Still, must-watch movies if you haven't. 8 out of 10, I would still keep that. Maybe I could possibly even push it to an 8.5, but I'm going to keep it 8 out of 10. Sword Art Online Progressive. Okay, so sue me, I know. I like the Sword Art Online franchise. It's not great. I don't care. I really enjoy it. And the Progressive movie, Sword Art Online Progressive Surzo of Deep Night, it felt like it just kind of happened. Like, I didn't really have much of a connection to it like the first Progressive movie. So it was kind of a disappointment. So right here, I say there was this weirdly long butt-centric camera angle during the emotional climax, and that's kind of like the main point that sticks out to me about that movie. That's like almost the main thing I remember about it, because it kind of blends in with the first Progressive movie. I would probably say I'm gonna reduce it down to a 6, because I just don't remember much about it, other than that butt scene, because it was just so out of place and weird for such a high, intense, emotional scene. It was funny more than it ruined the moment. All right, The Adam Project. All right, with Ryan Reynolds, I don't know what it is. I am typically not one to care about actors all that much. It's just not for me. I don't care about their lives or anything, but I was on a Ryan Reynolds kick this year. I'm not really sure. You'll see it later down the line of this movie list. All right, so The Adam Project, it felt like a movie from the 2000s, and that's not like a negative. It was very in line. It felt like something I would have watched, maybe not growing up, because it's a little bit more mature than a movie I would have watched as a kid, but it's definitely in that same vein of, you know, if it has that 2000s vibe, just with higher quality CGI. I would still give it the 7. It wasn't insanely memorable, but I remember key points, so it's gonna keep the 7. South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. Okay, for the longest time, I'm not a huge South Park guy. I don't like adult animation all that much. It's just typically it's stupid. A lot of just it's called adult animation, but it's more like made for like 15 to 14-year-olds. It's pretty stupid typically. I watched this movie because I was like, I always want to see it just out of curiosity. It's considered like a cultural cornerstone kind of deal almost. The movie sucked. It was stupid. It wasn't that funny. Like I know about South Park. I don't really know older seasons that much, so I'm a little I would not recommend anybody watch this, especially kids. But just in general, I would not recommend it. It's not funny. The whole point of the movie is basically, it's funny that children swear. And that was about it. Don't watch it. It's not worth your time. I would lower it to like a 2.5, honestly. Maybe that's a little harsh, because like if I'm taking this into modern day times, not so much of the time. If the time, I feel like a 4 is still a little accurate. But like nowadays, absolutely like a 2.5. Ooh, okay, Christopher Robin. I've been putting this movie off for ages. I was like, man, I want to watch it, but Disney just sucks. Their live action movies just aren't that good. But I don't know, something about this movie just clicked for me. It was adorable. It had like that gritty look to it, to where it was set in like a depressing UK. I don't remember exactly where it was set. I'm just gonna say London. It was set in depressing England. That's a better. It was, you know, just depressing UK location. Gray, cloudy, adult life sucks, blah, blah, blah. But the cute little characters were this sharp contrast to where they were still gritty looking, but they were, you know, cute and alive looking. I enjoyed this one quite a bit, actually. I think I'm going to bump it up to a 7.5 instead of a 7. Okay, now I know you guys will probably say this. I'm not IGN. I really tried to stay away from that 7. You're going to see a lot of 7s in here, unfortunately. I'm not IGN, though. I like to harshly judge things, but I just watched a lot of above average movies, but they weren't good enough for an 8, and they weren't bad enough for a 6. And that is one thing I should say. I'm very distinct about, a lot of people are like, oh man, a 5 is bad. No, a 5 is average. A 5 is to where you kind of sit in that, it's really nothing bad, it's just nothing special. And a 6 is a little above average. You're like, all right, there's some high qualities in here. It's not something amazing I would highly recommend, but there was enjoyable qualities. And then a 7 is genuinely good. It's like, all right, that is a good movie. A lot of positive things about it. An 8 is like pretty great, and a 9 is fantastic, and a 10 is essentially perfect. And I do not hand out 10s like willy-nilly at all. I am very precise with my 10s. And anyway, all right, so off that rant, R.I.P.D. I remember wanting to see this as a kid. I don't remember. I remember wanting to see it so bad with my friends, but my parents wouldn't let me go see it with them. Honestly, my parents did me a favor, and the movie sucked. It just wasn't really interesting. It felt like they just had this whole idea to where it could have really fleshed out. It could have been awesome, but they just blasted through it, and it was just there. Like, I feel like if they expanded on the world, it could have been something great, but it just wasn't. It's weird. I think it got a sequel on Netflix this year, like a Netflix original sequel. I'm not 100% on that, but I think that's true. I don't think Ryan Reynolds was in it, though. Oh, funny thing. I say it right here. Funny thing is, Ryan Reynolds recently starred in another movie with a very similar problems and concept, which was the Spirited movie with Will Ferrell. It had a lot of, like, strange connections to each other, and they also had similar flaws of the movies, but I like Spirited way more. I think that's a controversial opinion. I think people hate Spirited, but I enjoyed it, mainly the music. All right, anyways, on to number 10. Oh, I would also, the 4.5, I really don't remember much about this movie, so we're gonna lower it to a 4, actually, just to really solidify. Don't watch this movie. It's a waste of time, unless you just want to look at Ryan Reynolds' face occasionally, because, I mean, let's be real here, we know you do. Oh, ooh, okay. This right here. So if you guys know the whole Warner Brothers thing that was going on, to where Warner Bros., I don't remember the whole story, but Warner Bros. Was like, hey, we're scrapping a bunch of movies that are essentially finished because screw you guys, we want tax write-off money. So I found other means of watching Scooby-Doo and Crypto 2 that may or may not have leaked onto the Internet Archives. Genuinely, like, I was on a huge Scooby-Doo kick back in 2022. So it was like October, or it may have been September when I got on that Scooby-Doo kick. So anyways, it was really nice to see that this movie come out. I was so disappointed when I heard it got canceled, and then, oh, it got leaked. What are the odds? Such a good movie. Like, genuinely, legit, one of the best Scooby-Doo movies I've seen probably in a really long time. If you're just a fan of DC, you don't even have to like Scooby-Doo. If you like DC, like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, all of them, the Joker, this is a must-watch. And the way Lex Luthor is used in this movie, like, you'd think it'd be kind of stupid and unfunny. No, they use him so well. It's great. Like, if you're just a fan of Scooby-Doo or a fan of DC, it's a must-watch movie. And it's actually officially released now. I plan to buy the DVD soon. It's underrated, it deserves more attention, and the fact that they actually released it, I'm not going to sit here and praise Warner Bros. For releasing a movie that they should have released in the first place, but the fact they released it, the movie needs the support just to show that this was a good movie. They need to keep making stuff like this. Alright, on to number 10. Oh, 8.5. I think I would boost that up to a 9, honestly, but I feel like that's my Scooby-Doo bias leaking in, so we're going to keep it at an 8.5. Oh, okay. Okay, so this one is, my bias is showing, like, painfully right here. I love teasing Master Takagi-san. The show is so cute. It's just one of those, like, oh, I just want to turn my brain off and watch something that makes you smile kind of show. And this is one of those. I wasn't disappointed in it, but I thought it would have been something a little different. But nonetheless, what I got was something I was still very happy with, and I'm glad that they finished the movie with a solid, finalized ending. It wasn't just some, like, oh, vague, how slice of life and romance animes tend to be. Like, oh, we keep it kind of vague and open-ended, so you can make your own decisions, or you can read the manga. No, they solidify it. I mean, it was kind of solidified in the first place, but, like, it was nice to have that final touch. If you're a fan of the series, or if you're just looking for a good, cute anime, I would highly recommend it. It's just a good time, good watch. I feel like the 9 out of 10 is still very fitting. If you haven't watched it or you like the show, just watch it. It's a good time. It's fun. Okay, so this is funny. I watched this on the way to an eye appointment. I think it was during the summer. No, it was March. Well, anyways, I was watching this Looney Tunes Back in Action. I saw this as a kid and I didn't really remember anything about it, but like rewatching it, I was like, oh, there's a reason I didn't remember anything about it. It's bad. Like, it's just not a good movie. The only thing I remembered was that stupid Walmart sponsored stream. So, yeah, Looney Tunes Back in Action. It's a movie. A lot of wasted potential. I think the biggest devastation about this movie is the fact that the sequel we were supposed to get afterwards, I'm not going to sit here and say I know what it is. I don't remember. But I do remember it sounding a lot cooler than what this movie was. But yeah, 4.5. Honestly, it's so forgettable. I'm going to knock that to a 4. So yeah, not a great film. Okay, Sinister. One of my all-time favorite horror movies. Like, genuinely, it's so good. It's like, it follows a couple cliches here and there. It's spooky, it's creepy. It just follows a lot of, I don't know, it does a mystery well to where it's not boring to watch. Because, you know, sometimes horror movies are a little predictable in that realm. I will say, I did not like the ending because I was like, oh, you know, I don't mind supernatural scary stuff, but once it brings in, so spoilers, kind of, I mean, you already read the spoiler warning. I don't like the demonic ending it had in there. It felt like it kind of ruined the specialness of the scariness. I'm probably a minority in that choice, but I don't know. Was not a fan of that ending. Kind of ruined it for me, but still just a fantastic horror movie. If you watch horror, I would recommend it. I'm gonna keep that 8 out of 10. Okay, this was also a rewatch, I should say. Anytime it's something I've seen in the past, I label it a rewatch, so you will know that like this isn't my first time experiencing it. All right, on to number 14. Okay, so right here, I've always been told, like, just shown that RoboCop was like the big bad 90s or 80s superhero character. Like, this is what people describe as a badass hero in the 80s. And then I watched it and I was like, this is like adult Power Rangers. It was good. I liked it. Honestly, I feel like I liked the concepts and the world it created more so than the movie itself. And I'll get into that a little bit after I talk about the third movie. I feel like a 7 out of 10 is still pretty fitting for that, so we're going to keep that. I do wish to have seen the world a little fleshed out more. Number
15, Burger King foot lettuce.
RoboCop 2. So yeah, I think this is a better movie, but at the same time, I feel like, you know how just anytime something did good in the past, they're like, hey, we know the last movie was rated R, but what we're gonna do is, because it did so well and we want more money, we're gonna tone it down and make it for little babies. And that's what they did with RoboCop 2 and 3, and I was just very disappointed in that, because like it could have been awesome, but they just kind of nullified it a little bit. But I still think it was better in the way that it was a better story. It was more interesting. Had a little bit of Goofy in there, but I think the Goofy didn't harm it all that much. But I think the numbing of the vulgarity of the original was kind of harmed it. It could have been an 8 and it got pushed to a 7. I'm still sticking to that 7 though. I liked it. Okay, so RoboCop 3, it was disrespectful. Like this was clearly a cash grab. They had no respect for what it was. They essentially toned it down into a dumb kids movie. Like it was, I could be mixing this one up. I'm gonna lower this one down just because I don't remember much about it. But I think it introduced like way too many kids into it. Like there was this whole aspect with the little girl in the rebel base that was just stupid. I kind of remember that. Other than that, this movie is very forgettable. I know that like they didn't swear and there was like no, like they just completely removed all the gore, which was kind of a selling point for RoboCop. And then what really ruined it was the fact that they were they're like, oh, we can't have any of this. They can go to a brothel. No problem there. Like, what? Anyways, it was dumb. I still, honestly, if you watch 1 and 2, I would still say watch this one just because I say if you start a trilogy, you gotta finish it. But I would not recommend it, actually. It's only if you're one of those people like me who has to finish a trilogy no matter the quality. Because of the forgettability, it's going to a 3.5. out of 10. Ooh, Zombieland. Okay, so this is an interesting one for me. I remember thinking that the first Zombieland, like I watched it my first time back in like 2018, I want to say. First time I was like, what's all this hype behind this movie? Let me watch it. It was okay. I was like, I wasn't really impressed. I was just like, I don't get it. Rewatching it, I was like, wait a second, this is pretty dang good. There was a bit more character in it than I realized, and it was nice. I'm genuinely, I'm not reading off the Twitter or the post at all, and I'm realizing I'm repeating a lot of the things I originally had in mind about this movie, so that's kind of funny. That's not even intentional. I'm looking up and realizing, oh, I'm saying almost the exact same thing I had in, so that I'm glad that's working out. 7.5, I still feel like that's very fitting for the movie. It was good. I remember liking the sequel so much more when I first saw it, but then rewatching this movie, this is my second rewatch of it's the second time I've ever seen the first movie. I was like, oh wait, that was almost as good as this, or that was just as good as the sequel, which typically the sequel is never as good. And so that's where I get to 7.5. But by the way, 7.5 is still the rating I would give it. So Zombieland Double Tap, it was a rewatch again. It was just as good as the sequel. I mean, as the original. I really like this movie. It was seeing it 10 years down the line. I didn't have any nostalgia factor between the two because I saw the first movie and the second movie in like a 2 to 3 year span. I think it may have been even less than 2 actually, because I think the movie came out in 2019, didn't it? Anyways, honestly, they're both pretty good movies. I would say they're on equal footing. I may lean towards the second one a little bit more just because that's the one that made me like the series. But I'm going to say they're both 7.5s equally. Dragon Ball Evolution. This is an interesting one. So I actually kind of liked this movie in the sense of, like, all right, let's pretend Dragon Ball Z did not exist. Like, it was not a franchise, and Dragon Ball Evolution was some movie that came out in the 2000s. Not a good movie, but it was a fun movie. Taking the idea of it as an adaptation, it's garbage. It's genuinely just bad. Like, what were they smoking to make this movie? Why did they think any of this was okay? Please never make a film again in your life. I beg of you. That's what I was thinking as an adaptation. But, I kind of enjoyed it. No, I feel like if I saw this movie as a Dragon Ball fan, I wasn't a Dragon Ball fan when this movie came out, wasn't allowed to watch it as a kid, but if I saw this movie and I was a Dragon Ball fan back then, I would absolutely understand the outrage. It's disrespectful in every way possible as an adaptation, and it's hilarious for that reason. I feel like both of these, you know what, actually, I'm gonna detract them both by 0.5, solely because I don't remember much about it, other than the battle at the end with Piccolo and the party Goku goes to. Other than that, I don't remember the movie, so it's a 4.5 and a 2. As a movie, it's a 4.5, and as an adaptation, it's a 2. Technically, I feel like the adaptation shouldn't get reduced because of memorability, but, we're just sticking to the rules I set. Alright, and this is the 19th movie I've watched, so we're already at April 2nd. Okay, so right here, 20th movie, April 4th, this is when I watched this movie. Straight out of nowhere, Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog. This movie was such a disappointment. It had all the means to be great. And by that, I mean, it put two great IPs together, and they absolutely wasted it. Like, they made the villain freaking stupid. The writing felt like it was made for, like, 3-year-olds, but it makes no sense, because they were using two insanely old IPs, one that hasn't been active in, I want to say, over a decade. And, like, why are they writing this movie for, like, 3-year-olds when it's clearly trying to nostalgia bait 20-plus-year-olds? Like, what are y'all doing over there? This could have been so good, and it just sucked. I was just like, man, you guys had everything set up for you, and you still dropped the ball. I'm dropping this down to a 1. The more I sat on this thought of a movie, it wasn't memorable. It was poorly executed. It was stupid. The villain was a waste, and if you have a bad villain, you can have everything else. If you have a good villain, everything else can be okay, and you'll still get away with an okay movie. Everything about this movie sucked. So I'm dropping it down to a 1. Oh, okay, Super Mario Bros. Movie. Link in the description, you can't see where I'm pointing, but wherever the links appear in the video. I did a review on this movie, actually, so if you want a more in-depth thought about what I had about this movie, click that link. Anyways, it was a good movie. Like, I mean, it was Illumination, so it kind of had that Illumination vibe to it all. But it was a, I mean, besides Seth Rogen being Donkey Kong, it was a good movie. It's had so many references. It was pretty funny, actually. I was surprised. I think my brain maybe just turning to mush because I've realized this year that I've started to like a few more Illumination movies than I should. But anyways, the animation was nice. The art style wasn't that bad, actually. Like, I was kind of worried when, you know, it was getting adapted to a movie. Oh, they're gonna make it cringe and ugly. No, it has this nice in-between of, like, CGI animation, but still fits the Mario universe quite nicely. Bowser, Jack Black was fantastic. Controversial, I liked Chris Pratt as Mario. I thought he did a pretty good job. I'm forgetting the other voice actors' names, but Luigi did a great job, and so did Princess Peach's voice actor. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of the adaptation of Peach, but she wasn't bad like a lot of the internet makes her out to be. I would have just preferred a more traditional version of her, but that's still not even awful. 8.5, I still feel like that's valid. I own the 4K Blu-ray of this. I still haven't watched it yet because I have it in the collector set. I'm debating if I want to take it out. That was just a side note to say that you should buy more physical media. Anyways, 8.5 out of 10. Still pretty valid movie. Good watch. Go watch my full thoughts in the link above or in the description, wherever it's supposed to be. Some of my mods, they made me watch this movie called The Cube. It was interesting and it was artistic. It was an experience, to say the least. It was a short movie, which I appreciated that because I'm so sick of every movie having to be so stinking long. So it was nice to watch something a little shorter, but still like not aimed towards children. It was a little, I guess the best way you could describe it is a little psychological. It's kind of like Escape Room. I think it was like, I don't remember when the original Escape Room came out, but I really liked the original Escape Room. So it was kind of in that vein, but a bit more, there was a lot less going on because it was these people stuck inside of a cube and they were trapped by a madman. I would recommend it. It's a little hazy on me. I watched this one super late at night, so I don't remember it all too much, but I remember very much enjoying it. I'm gonna drop it to a 6.5 just to be consistent with my rule, but I don't think that 6.5 is valid, but I'm just doing it to stick by my rule. So 6.5 or a 7, you decide, out of 10. On to 23, Shaun of the Dead. This is an unpopular opinion. Same people who had me watch The Cube, my mods, they kept talking about how great this movie was. I'm sorry. It just wasn't good. It was stupid. It was very forgettable. Like, it goes to show that if the zombie apocalypse occurred in the UK, all of y'all would be dead in an instant. Like, you ain't got any of the yeehaws going around or anything, so, like, you ain't got nothing to protect yourself with besides a cricket bat and a bar, and that didn't turn out too great, now did it? Spoiler warning, I suppose. Anyways, I didn't like this movie. I thought it was kind of stupid. I'm gonna lower it to a 3.5. 1, because it was forgettable, and 2, I just didn't like it. I'm sorry, there was nothing really good about it. Oh, okay, Suzume, this is a good one. See, now I'm gonna get thrashed because everyone's just like, bro, you hate Shaun of the Dead, but then, well, anime fans will get why Suzume is great, but anybody who doesn't like anime is like, bro, this is insanely cringe. And you're right. Anyways, this is a unique movie because you would never think that the concept that happens from it would create such a great movie, but it does because it's so different. You would never think a concept like this would get such a high budgeted, beautifully animated, fantastically created songs for it. It's an all around good movie, but you're gonna hate me a bit here. I don't remember much about it. And I saw this one in theaters, so this is not from a lack of sleep for getting this one. This one's just, I don't remember too much about it. I remember loving it, but I don't remember much about it. So I'm gonna have to drop it to a 7.5 out of 10. I forget which universe this one is. I think it's called the DCAU. I went on the whole DCAU streak. I just watched all of the animated movies connected. I'll share my opinions on that in a bit. But Justice League, The Flashpoint Paradox, it was a rewatch. I liked it a lot more the second time I watched it. It's very good. The world dynamics were interesting. It was. I feel like it could have been more, but it was good enough. I'm gonna have to reduce it by a point though, because all the movies kind of just. I'm gonna probably have to do this to almost all of the DCAU movies, partly because I watched them all late at night, and 2 because they just all kind of mismatched together for me. So hate me, I understandable, but I'm gonna have to drop it to a 6.5 out of 10. Great movie though. Just a lot of potential kind of wasted. Justice League War. I genuinely don't even remember this. Oh wait, yeah. So they just mischaracterized all these characters. It felt like they were all just mean, like just for no reason. I was just like, okay, I understand dark, edgy world. All the superheroes are kind of angsty and just, ooh, villains suck and stuff like that. It could have been better. I feel like they just kind of destroyed a lot of the characters here. Not destroyed, maybe a bit intense, but I feel like they could have been handled better still. And again, I don't remember it. So we're dropping it to a 5.5 out of 10. Okay, so this one, A Week Away, a musical. Pretty forgettable. It just wasn't very good, to be honest. It was very Disney Channel-esque. There was a couple okay songs. I added a couple to my playlist. None I think I've listened to since I've added this to my playlist, but they were added, so that's something. All I remember is that the life lesson was kind of thrown away at the end. I can't fully remember why, but I remember like they were talking about like it was a love story between these two. And spoiler warning for some reason if anybody cares. The girl was talking about how her life is so much better now that she ended up with the guy, and I was like, that's not a good life lesson to teach people. You shouldn't need someone just to be happy, you know. That's not a good life lesson. And then her friend's like, oh, don't worry, girl, you're hot. And it was like, and that was kind of her takeaway. I was like, now I could be misremembering though, so to be fair, kind of forgettable movie. I'm gonna drop this one to a 4.5. One, because it's not memorable, and two, it did not leave an impression on me, and I think the life lesson damaged it. So 4.5 out of 10. Son of Batman. Let's say there's not much to say other than it was a good action movie. Yeah, I feel like that kind of sums it up right there. It was a good action movie, and that's kind of it. I couldn't stand Damien. He was like, he's just a turd. I get he's a kid. That's kind of, kids are turds. That's just what it is. But I don't know. I'm gonna drop this one to a 6.5 again. Forgettable. And just because all I remember about it is that Damien irritated me, I'm going to drop it to a 6 out of 10. I don't think it was a bad movie. Like, if you can just ignore the obnoxious preteen angst, then you can probably get through it a little better, but not for me. Ooh, Puss in Boots. Okay, so this is an interesting one for me. So I did not like this movie at all as a kid. I remember coming out of the theater and thinking, God, that was just garbage. Why did they destroy Shrek like that, man? But nah, rewatching, I was like, wait. This is like awesome. Why did I hate this movie? I don't know if it did well in the box office or not, but I really hope it did. I mean, it must have done some kind of numbers because it got a sequel like a decade later. But honestly, if you've only seen the sequel, or if you haven't seen either Puss in Boots movie, really, you should go watch this. This is a must-see movie. I really enjoyed it. It doesn't have that style the sequel offers, but it has all the writing and all the cinematography and action. Oh, okay, maybe not the same level, but still very good, especially for what it is. I would still recommend. All right, on to number 30. Okay, so this one's interesting. Guardians of the Universe, or Neil Stryker in the Tyrant of Time. This was I was planning to make a YouTube video about this. I was gonna do like a whole just a funny gag video, because it was during the time that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 came out. I can make some good content off of this. I can make some clickbaity YouTube thumbnail. And I was just like, it'll be a stupid cringe movie to make fun of. No, I actually kind of liked it. It was charming. It was insane. Had some pretty good special effects. I couldn't find too much information about this movie to see like where everything was coming from. But if you're an adult, I will only recommend this for adults, because there's a lot of nudity and questionable things in this. Okay, not a lot of nudity, but it's just in your face nudity, and there's a lot of swearing, so I would not recommend this for anyone above the age of I'm gonna say 21, just because. But it is a very charming movie that's funny, and it's very unique. So if you can somehow find a way to come across this film, I had to dig for it to find it, so, but if you can, check it out. It's a unique movie. 7 out of 10. I'm gonna say that's still a pretty fitting rating. So this is a unique one for me. Storks. It's not a good movie. Like I'm gonna have to reduce it already because I don't remember anything about it besides the wolves. But it was a good movie. Like, I enjoyed it, you know? I was expecting, like, just utter, just garbage. Like, oh, this is gonna be something swept under the rug in, like, a day. No, it was good. I liked it. It was a fun, simple kid's story. I feel like something, this, if I had a DVD of this back when I was, like, 8 years old, I would have watched the crap out of it. And The Wolves alone give it a good time. It's a solid 5 out of 10. I feel like the 5.5 is still valid, but because it's the forgettableness of it, we're gonna go 5 out of 10. Just, like, honestly, if you don't want to watch this whole movie, I would just look up the wolf scenes on YouTube. Those alone are just worth the watch. They're so stupid, it's funny. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Alright, so I am a big Marvel hater this year, according to everybody I've talked to, but Marvel just has dropped the ball horrendously in the past, since Endgame, essentially. But Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was freaking amazing, man. It was so good. It was hilarious. It had a heartfelt story. It was edgy in all the right ways. I love that they went a little darker with it than they typically do with Marvel movies. I'm going to have to up this one up by a 9, I think. Maybe I'm tempted to go up by a 9.5, but I'm going to stick to a 9. This was a great movie. If you haven't watched Guardians of the Galaxy 3 yet, please go watch it. I'm not even a huge fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I like them, but they're not my favorite. I did not like the second Guardians movie, so I was a little hesitant going into 3, and just with the way the MCU is going right now. But Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was fantastic. Must watch. On to movie 33. Oh, okay, I didn't realize I watched this back-to-back. Hated this movie. This movie's garbage. Literally no redeeming qualities. I think I was being insanely generous with that 5.5. Right off the bat, literally nothing's memorable about it. This isn't even a lack of memory. This movie just sucked. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium, I didn't like it. It felt like I was watching a gross CGI fest of people who were just didn't do it. Like, alright, so I'm not gonna sit here and give the CGI artists a hard time, because that wasn't their fault. They were just being pushed out the door to cram as much crap as they possibly could in an insanely small budget and time limit. I don't know about budget, but time limit. And it wasn't good. It was very unfunny. It did not feel like Quantumanium. I mean, it did not feel like Ant-Man. Excuse me. Kang sucked. He was boring. He's supposed to be this ultimate bad guy, and he was just like, really? That took him down? Overall, it was not a good movie. I'm dropping it to a 3.5. Bad movie. You know what? 3.5 seems disingenuous. I'm being exaggerative. We're going by a 4. Just don't watch this movie. If you don't have to, if you're not some huge MCU fan, don't bother. Don't save your 2 hours of your life, please. You only have so much of it. Don't waste it on this movie. So, Ride Your Wave. This was a good movie. Like, I signed up for, like, this cute little romance comedy, or not romance, rom-com. I was like, well, I guess that is romance comedy. Anyways, I signed up for this movie just thinking it was going to be a good slice of life romance movie. No. It's a great one, but it's a painful one, and it's sad, but it's a good sad, and it's a good movie, and you should watch it. You know what, I think I'm gonna have to break my rule here, because I did watch this movie. Like, if you see right here, I finished it at 3:38 a.m., so my memory is not great on this one, but I'm debating if I should break my rule a little bit, bend it a little bit. You know what? No, it's a great film, but I gotta stick to my guns. It's a 7.5 out of 10 solely because it's a little forgettable. It kind of meshes all together. Not in the sense that it's bad. It's more so it's just... It's a slower paced movie, but it's still well paced and very good. It's a movie I can't say much about without spoiling it. So just kind of expect a Ghibli vibe from it in the sense of pacing, I suppose. 7.5 out of 10. Still great watch if you haven't seen it. I had this one in my watch list, or my backlog, for ages. I was like, oh, I'll get to it eventually. I wish I didn't. Oh my gosh, I was in frustration the whole time I was watching this movie. I just wanted to throw this kid out a window. I was like, geez, please, shut up. He was such an unbearable turd. He was crying the whole time, and it was a very realistic depiction of a child. It was not it was a very well written movie in the sense of it was believable. This is how a child would react to all this stuff. But holy crap, you gotta have some patience to deal with this movie. because it is, you just don't like the character and you have to follow him throughout the whole thing. I would only recommend this movie if you have a high tolerance for whininess or just children as a whole. Because, I mean, it does tell an interesting story. I think I'm going to have to reduce it to a 5.5, though. This isn't due to a lack of memorability. This is due to a lack of, I would never want to watch this movie again solely for my sanity's sake. Oh, okay, so this one, I mean, I believe this is a pretty iconic movie. Hachi, A Dog's Tale. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't what I was kind of hoping it to be. I already knew the ending because it's just an iconic story. So the impact didn't really hit me all that much. It's a 6.5, you know, 6.5 out of 10. Nothing too great, nothing bad. Justice League Throne of Atlantis. This was a good movie. I really liked it. I don't want to talk too much about it because I feel like I'll say too much. The ending did feel a little clunky and rushed, like I said. Aquaman is not an interesting character all that much to me, but this was a good movie. I would recommend it if you're debating on if you want to like an Aquaman character outside of Jason Momoa. All right, Batman versus Robin. I don't remember too much. I'm having to. It's already getting deducted because it's getting a 6 out of 10 already because I don't remember much. Felt like it was just there. I feel like the beginning it used a really interesting character or villain premise, and then they just kind of threw it away like super early on. I was just like, why would you set it up to be so cool and then like hurt our feelings like that? If you're watching the DCAU, watch it. If you're not, don't bother with this movie. Batman Bad Blood. Yeah, this was a pretty big stinker. Yeah, see, I promise I'm not even reading these beforehand. I'm saying what's coming to mind, and apparently my mind has not changed much from it. I was bored almost the entire time. Don't bother with it. It's bad. It's a 5. It's a 5 out of 10. Justice League versus Teen Titans, another stinker. We were getting some bad ones, one after another with the DCAU. The title's huge clickbait, because I mean that happens with almost every story that has that kind of titling. But it wasn't good. There was a little rom-com carnival scene I liked. It was kind of cute, but other than that, that's literally the only valid thing. I'm gonna drop this to a 4.5. Justice League Dark. Okay, this one could have been good, but it was just, man, I don't like Constantine as a character. Like, this is just my bias here, so this one's kind of debatable. I just don't like magic. I think it's a very boring concept to introduce. Unless it's with Superman himself, I do not like magic being introduced in superhero shows, because I feel like it's just such a, I don't know, it feels lazy and boring, because magic is just such a broad spectrum. It can be almost anything, and I don't like it being introduced into my shows all that much. That's a weird and divisive opinion, I know, but I mean, even aside from the magic aspect, I just didn't like it. It felt like it was kind of a stupid movie that was not very interesting. I feel like the 5 out of 10, I'm gonna drop it to a 4.5 just because I don't remember much about it other than Constantine being in it. It was wasted potential. It could have been so much better. Okay, here. This was a good one. See, I've been thrashing the DCAU this whole time. This is a movie that you gotta see, man. This was a good, like, you can't really watch it without seeing the others, but I feel like I loved seeing Blue Beetle in it. That was really cool. He's becoming not a favorite superhero of mine, but he's definitely a very well-liked one of mine. I really like Blue Beetle. The story was interesting, and the villains, man, you will hate the villains in this movie. So just, if you watch the DCAU, make sure not to miss this one. Looks like we're about the halfway point. Okay, Suicide Squad, Hell to Pay. Again, kind of forgettable, so we're already dropping to a 6.5, but it wasn't forgettable in the sense of, I feel like I'm unfairly rating these. I'm dropping them by a point because of my poor memory rather than it's a bad movie. But I feel like if it didn't make that much of an impression on me, I feel like the subtraction of a point is kind of valid at the same time, you know? Anyways, it's okay. I remember the final fight scene just kind of being, you know, it happened. I wouldn't highly recommend it by any means. It's there. 6.5 out of 10. The Death of Superman. Alright, so, I mean, it's there. It's, I feel like if they called it this for Blu-ray, DVD and Blu-ray sales strictly, like, if they did not name it this, I feel like the ending could have been it would have had such a stronger effect on me, but I knew what was happening, so I was just like, well, that happened, you know, and I was like, sure, whatever. And seeing the more human side of Superman with Lois, though, in the relationship, that was nice. That I genuinely, one of my favorite aspects of superheroes is seeing them live their day-to-day life. I know that's stupid, but I don't know what it is. I just love seeing characters. Like, I enjoy the action and all that, but that's why I like the OG Teen Titans Cartoon Network show, because it was so good just seeing them, like, you know, hang out and be friends, but also just go insane and have this dark, emotional story with supervillains and all that too. Anyways, I got sidetracked. I'm gonna drop it to a 6 out of 10. This one was interesting. I said it had an engrossing story, and a good portion of the time the payoff was weak, and it felt like a stretch. Yeah, like, again, I'm dropping this by I'm dropping this by a 0.5. It was interesting to see all the Supermen kind of show up over time and not flesh each other out, but show up and kind of like, oh, here's this new combative, like, what is the idea here? And it was interesting. I'm speaking poorly here, but it was interesting to see new Supermen appear, and obviously they were nowhere near on par to the OG Superman. It was a unique story, but again, dropping it to a 6 out of 10. 46, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. All right, so just right off the bat, this movie was so much better than the first movie. This is going to be a small review of the original movie. All right, let's say if the original Spider-Verse movie had the animation of an Illumination movie, nobody would like it as much as they did. Like, it was an okay kids movie because the story was all right. It did nothing all that special. It was a pretty predictable kids movie, but people loved it because the animation was just mind-blowing. It was gorgeous. And that's why people love the first movie so much. This movie does both right. It has an amazing story. It's very well written. The animation is insane and creative, and it is experimental in all the right ways. This movie does it right. It is so much better than the first movie in every possible way. And that's what makes me excited for the sequel. And that's kind of where this movie gets hurt. It just ends. I don't mind cliffhangers in the sense of continuing to a sequel, because it was a part 1 and a part 2. That's just how I knew that's how this movie was going to be. I didn't think it was going to drop off the way it did. It just dropped. It felt like the lead up was kind of clunky. It wasn't bad. I felt like it could have been handled a little better, but I don't have a way to, I couldn't tell you how they could finish it better. So I'm a bit, what is the word? Contradictive? I can't think of the word, but I just think it could have ended better, you know? Anyways, still a fantastic movie. Can't wait for the sequel. So Batman Hush. The trailer made it seem way cooler than it was. I mean, that's just factual. Like, if you watch the trailer compared to the actual movie, when I say I don't remember them, I have like little scenes that occasionally appear. I actually don't remember this movie like almost at all. Hold on. Still cool, just not as much. Felt like it was lacking mystery, but it made up with having Bruce be happy for a short period of time, which was nice to see. See, that's where my bias with seeing superheroes be human comes in again. That I just really like that. That is a fun. You don't get to see Bruce be happy too often. I did like that part, if I'm remembering it correctly, because there was a girl he fell in love with, and there was some happiness and interaction there for a bit. The voice for Joker was really lacking and distracting. See, I don't remember that at all. This movie, maybe I should watch a trailer for it real quick. I have to lower this movie by a drastic amount, solely because I just don't remember anything about it. It's gonna have to go to a 5. Like, I mean, I remember the scene with, I almost called her Green Ivy, Ivy and Superman, but other than that movie, I'm drawing almost a complete blank on, and I hated the Joker's voice. We're dropping that to a 5. Okay, this one, Wonder Woman, this was like the worst movie out of the DCAU. Wonder Woman Bloodlines, it was just sloppy, man. Like, we had some random teen angst thrown in there with this girl that she was living with. It was just kind of dumb. There was no real connection, but they built a connection later on. It felt like it just kind of molded together for no reason. Excuse me. The last 30 minutes were pretty exciting. I remember the battle being sick. It was really cool to watch that unfold. But other than that, it was just kind of, it was a bad movie. I'm gonna have to drop this to a 4. I remember it for the most part. I just don't I don't remember. I remember especially not liking it the whole time. I was just unimpressed the entire time, which sucks because this is a great Wonder Woman this time. Like, I really like this version of Wonder Woman. So it sucks that when she finally got a movie, it wasn't good. Justice League Dark Apocalypse. This one was okay. I feel like out of the two Justice League movies, or between Justice League Dark and Justice League Dark Apocalypse, this one was a lot better. It was more interesting. The violence was wild. Like, they didn't hold back, which was nice. Though the entire DCU, or, okay, sorry, this one's called the DCAMU. I don't remember what the M stands for. I'm assuming just, I don't know. I'm not going to say I don't remember. The movie itself was a 7. I feel like I can stick to that. The DCAU, looking back at it though, I enjoyed what I watched. The DCAMU, independently, those movies, a lot of them were pretty bad, but watching them like linked together, it was still an enjoyable experience. I'm gonna have to slap them down to a 6.5, not for memorabilia or memorableness, but for just honestly dropping the ball on so many movies. I think they had like 4 good movies, and the rest were just kind of okay or genuinely bad. Alright, honestly, I remember just being relieved when I finished the DCAMU, because it was just, I was just done with it, you know. I wanted to watch more superhero stuff. That's the problem, because I was really hankering for some superhero stuff, but nobody was offering anything good. So it was kind of disappointing to be done, especially when over half of it was a disappointment. So this one is a very nostalgic factor for me. Horrible movie. Like, I watched this all the time as a kid. Like, I remember my parents would bring a portable DVD player and like this little tiny heavy CRTV, and they would just, whenever I was left alone, like, hey, we got to go work on some stuff, sit in the children's area while we're working. I'm like, all right. And then they would just, like, I was the only kid there because they were having to work all the time. So I would just either have my GameCube or I'd be watching movies like this. And I think this is partly why the entertainment side of my brain is so poorly formed, because I watched movies like this so much. It's a horrible movie. And if it wasn't for the nostalgia factor, I feel like I'd probably drop it to like a 2. It is iconic in its own way. It's kind of the same for Mirai. If you don't have a high tolerance for children, don't watch this movie. Also, Ice Cube, I like his voice. He was great in Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Movie's pretty stupid. I don't know how he thought this was an okay movie for him to be in. Okay, so this one right here, this one takes place in the DCAU, like just the animated TV series universe. It was disappointing, because I was like, oh, this could be, they were just like, oh, let's make it adult. Nightwing has sex with Harley Quinn. Ooh, you know, we're mature now. But then they tell this stupid story that wasn't really mature, other than the fact that they did the do. And it was just like, man, like, this could have been cool, but it was just kind of lame. And it wasn't as funny as it should have been. It was just, I'm going to drop it down to a 5.5. It just wasn't good. It was, I shouldn't say that. It wasn't good. It was just barely above average. I love this movie. This was such a good movie. They were handled well here. Damien's typically this little jerk that you just can't stand, but he was a jerk in this movie, but it wasn't like a hate, like, you don't hate him. He's not a jerk for a valid reason, but like, it makes sense that he's a jerk, at least, you know? And I love seeing Superman, Lois, and Superboy just, I don't remember if that's his name, Superboy. I think that may be a different character. Anyways, I loved seeing their interactions. It was all very wholesome and fun. I didn't like the art style change per se, because it did this 3D animation. It looked great 3D animation, especially for a straight to Blu-ray movie, but I would have preferred them just to stick to the 2D animation. But it was still a good movie. I highly recommend this movie. I don't think it's connected to any of the other movies, so you can fully watch this on its own. I would say it's a must-watch. I'm going to jump it up to an 8.5. I love this movie. So, Superman 1978. I've been on a huge Superman streak past couple years because I've been watching Smallville. I'll get into that later. But I was like, you know, I need to watch the OG Superman. I've been putting this movie on for ages. Let's get to it. Honestly, I feel like I'd probably have a higher opinion of it if I watched it when I was younger, or obviously in the time, it'd probably be a much higher. But it was still a good movie. I feel like my 6.5 is being not generous. It's being a bit more realistic, but it was an enjoyable movie. So I'm gonna stick to my 6.5. It was like, I feel like it could be a 7 if I rewatched it maybe, But just alone, like it was a lot of the movie. I was just like, man, how'd they do the special effects? That was cool. And it was like, especially for the time, it was just interesting to see that play out. Also, fantastic choice of Superman. Superman and Lois were both great choices, the actors for them. I don't know how great of an adaptation it is because I truly don't know too much about the OG Superman, but like I've never been into Superman until I started watching Smallville. As far as I'm aware, it was a good adaptation. That could be completely wrong though. But it was interesting to see how they handled Krypton and all that. So this is a controversial opinion here. I actually loved the Flash movie. Yeah, the person who plays Flash sucks. Like, we all know it, but it was a good movie. Like, if you look past, it was enjoyable. It was a fun movie that I would highly recommend people watching. Honestly, I thought it was great. Yeah, there was some PS2 level CGI, and it was kind of cringe, but I mean, I like this movie. I don't care. Honestly, I'm forgetting the actor's name, but she was a great choice to play the Superman version, this version of Superwoman. So yeah, I'm gonna stick to my 8 out of 10. The invention of line. Okay, so this is when I start getting into my weird phase of movies, where I'm just watching random one-off movies from the 2000s. Honestly, the concept was good, and then that's kind of it. It just wasn't very funny. It wasn't very. I feel like they could have taken the idea so much further, and then they just kind of didn't. It was just dumb. It was wasted opportunity. We're going to drop it to a 5 out of 10. So this one's a bit of a... I didn't know this was controversial at the time. Me and my family, we just randomly went to go see it because my dad was like, hey, you guys want to go see a movie? And we're like, yeah, sure. So he took us and we went. I mean, I thought it was good. Looking back on it, I think my 8 out of 10 was a very emotional response. I would still say it was an enjoyable movie, but I would not give it an 8 out of 10. I'm thinking a 7. So 7 out of 10 for Sound of Freedom. Ooh, guys, oh my goodness. All right, so Vivarium, I think I'm saying that right. This is such a good movie. You need to see this. Like, Jesse Eisenberg, I always get him mixed up with Michael Cera for some reason. I don't really know why. But either way, like, I kind of make the same associations with them. So seeing him do a movie like this was very interesting. It is such a good movie. It's very wacky and very creepy, but not in like a horror movie way, but in like just a intense, like, whoa, what the heck is going on kind of way. If you have not seen this movie, it's a must watch. I think I'm gonna up it up to an 8.5 just because of how much of an impact it had on me. I can't say much about it without being spoiler. Okay, so this one, I'm gonna be straight up. Oppenheimer, I didn't like the movie. I thought it was boring. I think that's disingenuous to say it's a bad movie though. It had amazing cinematography, great writing, great sound design, just so much around it made it a fantastic film. But it was not a movie for me at all. I was bored. I did not particularly care. So for on a movie rating scale, an 8 out of 10 is valid, but on a personal rating scale, I'm gonna have to give it like a 5.5. Just because, or 5.5 out of 10, just because I just wanted it to be over. It just kept going and going. So I should have specified this a bit more. It was a great movie in every way that a movie can be great, but I didn't like it. I know that's probably not a popular opinion. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. When I heard about this movie, that Seth Rogen was going to be in charge, I was scared basically the entire time because Ninja Turtles is one of my favorite franchises of all time. So seeing that Seth Rogen, a person I am not a fan of in the slightest, be in charge of it was a little concerning. I would say, all things considered, it was a good movie. It was not a good Ninja Turtles movie because I felt like it literally got rid of almost every aspect about the Ninja Turtles other than the fact that they're teenagers. I won't go into a huge rant because I could complain about this movie for days. Besides the animation just being gorgeous, I hated how the movie ended. Huge spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't seen it. The way the Turtles are just accepted by society at the end just destroys the way the Ninja Turtles are for me. Because, like, that's kind of, they're supposed to be outcasts. They're supposed to be heroes of the night that can't truly be known for saving the world. And yeah, like, past iterations have kind of done it, like, to where they're appreciated. but in a different way. This one's just like, all right, first movie, they're accepted by society because they saved all of New York, and that's a valid reason to be accepted. I don't know, it just, I also wasn't a huge fan of all the ad-libbing that was in the movie. It's just, I know the Ninja Turtles are supposed to be kind of a product of their time. That's how they do. They're supposed to be like, oh, whatever's trending at the moment. But this movie, they say Riz and like other slang I can't think of off the top of my head. I'm like, man, just 3 years from now, Riz is going to be such an outdated term. It's just going to become such a product of its time. And I feel like the Ninja Turtles are so much more than that. They may have started out that way, especially with the original 80s cartoon. Like, as a franchise as a whole, I would say a lot of their series are very timeless, like, especially 2003, 2012. I can't argue I would say the 90s movies are, at least more than what this movie is. They're still very much in their time, but that's more so just because of how much technology's advanced, more so than how it's written. Maybe the sequels I could disagree with, but at least the first movie wasn't as much of its time. I'm still gonna stick with my 7.5 out of 10 though, because it was a very enjoyable movie. It just was not what I wanted from a Ninja Turtles movie. So yeah, I feel like that's valid. Eat me alive if you disagree. Number 60, Transformers Prime Beast Hunters Predacons Rising. That is a mouthful of a movie title. Okay, so I can't really talk about the movie without talking about the TV show. The movie did not feel necessary as a way to continue the show. I feel like the show ended out perfectly, and the movie was just kind of like oh, we could do a little more, just kind of a big send-off. And it was still a great send-off. I just kind of wish that we saw some I kind of wish we saw some villains die, like they insinuated their death, but it wasn't fully shown. And this show was not afraid to show characters dying violently. So it was a little disappointing when we didn't get characters shown the deaths that they should have deserved. And I think it's because they had a spin-off series later on to where they brought those characters back and they want to kind of keep it vague just in case. That's probably what happened. But I would have really liked to have seen certain characters. All right, huge spoiler warning. I would have loved to have seen Starscream get eaten alive the way they insinuated he was supposed to be. But other than that, it was a good movie. It didn't need to happen, but it was a good one. I will stick to my 8 out of 10 rating for Transformers. This is an interesting movie. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. If you guys haven't seen it, it's essentially like, if you've seen the 2012 Avengers movie, like the first Avengers movie, it feels like it's almost not beat for beat, but there's so many similarities. It really feels like the 2012 Avengers movie just stole this movie's like entire story. Like, I can't go too deep into it, but it feels like just all the way the Avengers are gathered, all the way the heroes dislike each other and then eventually like each other and work together. It's a good movie. I can't really say too much without saying what it is, but it's a bunch of historical figures who meet together in like this secret society kind of way. Watch it, it's unique. I'm gonna stick to my 7.5 out of 10 rating. Liar Liar with Jim Carrey. I went on a little Jim Carrey spree. I'm gonna lower it to a 7 because I don't remember too much about this movie. It felt like it was just kind of that early 90s, 2000s movie kind of vibe to where Jim Carrey does funny faces, and that's kind of the whole joke. But it's absurd, it's enjoyable, a lot of good humor. I just don't remember a lot about it, so we're gonna stick with a 7 out of 10 for Liar Liar. The Truman Show. I'm gonna lower this to a 7 because I feel like my expectations were just not met. Now that's partly because it was just, it's such a hyped up movie. It's supposed to be like, oh, this is an iconic, and I'm sure for the time it was mind-blowing, especially for just the idea of it. But I feel like the way it went about it, I would have liked it to where the audience was kind of kept out of the loop the whole time. And I mean, I'm essentially asking for a completely different movie, so this isn't a valid criticism, but the way I would have liked to have seen it is to where the audience is completely unaware that this is a show, and we were seeing it unfold as he was seeing it. Now, maybe that would be a little predictable. I don't know. I'm typically not one for remakes. I think this movie could have been... I think this could be a fantastic movie to see a remake in. I don't know who could ever replace Jim Carrey for it, though. I don't think Jim Carrey would want to redo it. But I feel like a modern-day remake could be very interesting. Could have some very interesting commentary. I'm going to drop it to a 7 out of 10. Still a good movie. Just not what I wanted from it. The Hill. Oh, okay. So I saw this one with my family. My dad just wanted to go see it. I had no interest in watching this. But, you gotta watch movies with your family. It's a sports movie. If you've seen one sports movie, you've seen them all. It's an interesting true story. If you're interested in sports or baseball or like seeing someone with a disability still do very good in what they attempt, it's very interesting. Or I should say very. It's interesting. I'm going to stick to my 6.5. it's better than what the average sports movie is, but it's nothing special. So that 6.5 is very fitting. So I went on a little Resident Evil spree. I watched them out of order like a dumb person, though. Resident Evil Death Island, the action scenes were so insane. They were so good. Like, if you want to see, like, Devil May Cry but with zombies, that's this whole movie. It's so good. I loved all the cheesy one-liners. I wish I saw this in theaters when it came out, but I missed it. And then Vendetta. Now, all the movies kind of started to blend together for me, and each one got worse after the next, which is funny because I watched them backwards. I watched the newest ones and then got to the oldest ones, so I don't know why I did that one. But I mean, it was still fun. The choreography, fight scenes were cool. It was just goofy. I love the animation style of to where they're just video game cutscenes animated, and that's so cool to me. I wish more video game adaptations would do this. And like, these aren't even adaptations. These are just straight up continuations of the video game lore in a movie. I wish more games would do stuff like that, honestly. In Resident Evil's Damnation, you can see the age in this one by quite a bit, but it was still fun. There were some scenes that were pretty insane with the animation. Nowhere near as good as the other ones. Leon is hilarious in the way he acts, though. He's just such an angst lord. It's hilarious. And the way he kills a dog, I forget what they're called in the Resident Evil world, but he kills one of the zombie dogs. It's just so insanely unnecessary. It's hilarious. Okay, I'm gonna have to... Oh, wait, I didn't say my ratings for these. The 6 out of 10 is still valid for Resident Evil Damnation. 7 out of 10 is still valid for Vendetta. And the 8 out of 10 is valid for Resident Evil Island 2. Okay, so Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, I don't know what I was thinking when I gave it a 6 out of 10. Honestly, like, looking back, if we're doing a comparison game from the original to the remake, the remake is just bad. I'm dropping that one to a 3. I'm going to give it a 4. I'm going to be a little generous. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. The 6 out of 10 was way too generous. It just, the original movie was so good. Like, I've watched so many horror movies in my life. So when I saw the original Nightmare on Elm Street, just a few years ago, it was my first time ever watching it. I was expecting, it's going to be full of cliches because it's an old movie. No, there were so many things that just threw me off. I was like, what? Okay. I didn't think something so old could still be so surprising and like not full of cliches. So when I watched this one, I was just like, oh. When I first watched it, I don't know what I was thinking with the 6 out of 10. It just doesn't seem valid enough. It doesn't seem like a good rating. But I did enjoy it. I'm not going to lie, but it wasn't just in comparison to the original. Like, if there was no original, I feel like the 6 out of 10 would be kind of valid. But with it as a remake, it's disgustingly bad. If this was the original movie, this would not be an iconic culture piece like the original was. So 6 out of 10 for Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Dragon. Okay, this one was kind of interesting. I don't watch a lot of. I love the OG Dragon Ball. I've not watched a lot of Z. I stopped like midway through the first Frieza saga, or I don't know if I should say first, but the Frieza saga, like right when they were fighting on Namek. So I'm not big into Dragon Ball Z all that much. But I remember as a kid really wanting to go see this movie in the theaters, but I couldn't get anybody to take me for circumstances that I can't entirely remember. I think it was raining and nobody wanted to drive in the rain, so nobody wanted to take me to see this movie, and it was a limited time showing. Anyways, finally saw it for its 10th anniversary. It was not what I was expecting. There was a lot of slice of life moments that you would not expect to see from a Dragon Ball movie per se. But I liked it. It was good. I feel like the 7.5 is valid. The sound design, though, I am not joking. I don't know if it was my theater or what, but it literally sounded like so much of the audio mixing was just pure garbage. It was awful. I've never heard an anime movie sound so bad. It sounded like they just ripped an insanely low quality MP3 file from YouTube and then added those sound effects into Dragon Ball. It wasn't throughout the whole movie. It was just through a lot of random moments where I was like, that doesn't fit. It was very weird and distracting. Oh, the FNAF movie. All right. Not a FNAF guy. Don't really know much about it. All my experiences come from like playing the first game up to like the third night, maybe. I didn't really like the games, didn't really care for them, but I love the lore. So watching, all my experience comes from MatPat at Game Theory. That's kind of my entire experience with FNAF. But I was really excited for the movie because I love Jim Henson Company, and just seeing puppets, I was glad that they did real animatronics and not lame CGI or whatever. So it was really cool to see, but not just because of the practical effects. It was just a good movie. I really enjoyed it. I'm very excited for the sequel. I'm just glad that it was as good as it was. I do wish it was scarier, and I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on some parts. It could have been better in a lot of ways, especially when I heard like further criticism from other people. But I think that 7.5 is a very valid rating. I want to watch it again. I just haven't gotten around to watching it again. It was a good movie though. The Hunger Games. So this was a rewatch. I mean, I saw this movie when I was a child, so it still holds up very well. I would have liked to have seen it kind of last a little longer. I felt like the pacing, especially at the beginning, was pretty rough, but it was still very good. I would have liked to have seen the characters stretched out a little more, kind of more expanded on. But, you know, for what we got, it was still a very good movie. The 8 out of 10 is valid. Yeah, not too much to say there. I feel like the exact same thing I said about the first movie. It can be said here. It did expand a little bit more, a little more entertaining. It was genuinely just a good movie. Excuse me. But it was a good movie. It was same thing I said about the first movie can be said here. It was fleshed out a little more, so that's where that 8.5 that's where that 0.5 came from. So 8.5 out of 10 is valid. I was watching these to go see Song of the Ballad of the Songbirds and Snakes. I didn't watch the third one in time. This, no joke, I didn't think this would be possible. The prequel movie is probably the best one out of the franchise. Genuinely such a good movie. It had great writing, really interesting plot. The characters were well balanced. I like the songs in there too. There were some good songs. I don't really have any complaints I can think of in this one. That 9 out of 10 is pretty solid for me. Let's see. Easily the best of the franchise so far. I typically forget a lot about a movie afterwards, but this was memorable from beginning to end. I was engrossed through, which is hard for me to do. Yeah. I didn't really say too much about the movie itself in my review, but the movie was good. It was a good movie. I would recommend it. 9 out of 10. All right, so now I got to Mockingjay Part 1. It was a necessary movie to happen, but it was slow. It was a little rough to watch, I won't lie. But it was a necessary, and it came out, literally the sequel came out, or Part 2 came out the next year, so it wasn't like a long, painful wait to wait for. It was just, you know, it was a must movie for us to get the whole story. And they also did it just to stretch out, you know, to get those big bucks for both movies. Because, you know, anytime a trilogy or a really big book series comes out, they always got to split the third part into two parts, you know, or the final book into two parts, so they can just really gouge us for money. But it was an okay movie. It did its job. And then this one, it was another great movie. Good way to satisfy an ending. It would have been nice to have it. It was what you needed it to be. So this one, Leo, it's so funny. You would not expect an Adam Sandler musical about a lizard in an elementary school to be good. This was a good movie. I genuinely really liked it. It was wholesome. It was well written. The kids were not like unbearable little turd bags. They were likable characters. They were all funny. It was a well written story. It's nice to see Adam Sandler getting a role that wasn't just stupid, you know. It had a lot of heartfelt moments that you don't see too often in movies nowadays, I feel like. Like, there's heartfelt moments in movies nowadays, but this one had like that, kind of like that 2000s vibe. And it wasn't just because it was Adam Sandler doing it. It was, I don't know, it had its own feel to it. Very classic-like, I guess. I liked it. 8 out of 10 still. All right, so The Road to El Dorado. This was a classic movie. It was like, I'm very surprised I was allowed to watch this movie as a kid, because rewatching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, did my mom and dad watch this movie before letting me see it? Because there's some adult stuff in it. Like, there's human sacrifice, there's blood, there's some innuendos, and there's just like, all right, besides that, the music is iconic. It's so good. I added so many songs to my playlist through this movie. Beautifully animated too. Great movie. That 9 out of 10 is very valid. I really hated the first Sing movie. It was so bad. Illumination Sing was just not a good film. But Sing 2 just blew it out of the water. I was just like, what? This animation is so nice. It's not stylish in the sense of the art style itself, but the way they do these light shows and choreography. And I was just like, man, how did the first movie come to this? Also, it just had really great song choices. I'm sure that kind of had a factor in my decision, Because I was like, if they had some bad song choices or songs I just personally didn't enjoy, I feel like my opinion would be a little bit more wavered. But they had like some of my favorite songs in there. Specifically, Could Have Been Me by the Struts. That was a nice little surprise. I was like, heck yeah, that's a banger. Good songs, good choreography. It was interesting how they split up the story too, because typically the way when a kids movie does that, it's not very well executed, but the way they did it, it was all well balanced, and I felt like everything was satisfyingly ending. So 8 out of 10. I typically would never give an Illumination movie something that high, but other than the Mario movie, of course. But you know, it was a good movie. I liked it. I was surprised. And then so here's my Ryan Reynolds kick that picks up. Six Underground. I watched 2 Ryan Reynolds movies. They weren't similar, but they were kind of in that same vein of action hero, so I'm getting them a little mixed up. One was with Ryan Reynolds and The Rock. Now that I'm kind of thinking it through, though, okay, never mind. Sorry, got things mixed up. We're good. This was a good movie. I was surprised. I feel like my 7.5 may be a little generous, so I'm gonna lower that to a 7. But it was very fun. Like, the characters were likable, the concept was interesting. Just seeing all these they weren't heroes, they were just people who were sick of the world and basically pretended to die, and then they turned themselves into quote-unquote ghosts who were just trying to help the world by being undercover and doing things that nobody else was brave enough to do, in a sense. And it was a very interesting concept, and I'd like to see a sequel, honestly. It's too good of a concept to waste. And so the more I'm gonna give that 7.5 back. The more I think about it, I liked it enough to give it that 7.5. So 7.5 out of 10. And then this one, Red Notice. This is where I was getting a little mixed up. So this one's with The Rock and the Ryan Reynolds, and I feel like their chemistry was really good. That was kind of like the whole appeal of this movie. Other than their chemistry together, the movie was okay. It was pretty typical, you know. It just kind of played it safe. It did what needed to be done. You got to see The Rock and Ryan Reynolds interact together. I'm not a huge Rock fan. Dude's not my favorite person, but you know, it is interesting to see these two interact, and they played well off each other. I feel like that's my main thing to say about this movie. It's just how nice it was to see them play together. That sounded weird. Anyway, 6 out of 10. The voices. Okay, so I regret watching this movie. I kind of watched it on a whim. I came across it on TikTok, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. A guy who's... the description that was given to me was, it was a cat who was telling a man to kill people, and he was trying to fight off the cat telling him to do that, and he's crazy. I was like, that sounds interesting. Okay. It was a bit much for me. I would not recommend this movie. Like, the story was interesting, but just kind of seeing everything happen, I was just like, this is gross. I don't like this. Like, and it's labeled as a dark comedy, which I didn't know going into it. I don't like dark comedy. I don't like horror comedy. I feel like those are just two genres that shouldn't really collide all that much, because I feel like it's kind of gross together. I don't know how else to explain it. But watching it, I was like, I don't like this one. I'm gonna lower this one. Like, as a movie itself, I feel like a 6 out of 10 is valid. But as a personal, I'm still gonna have to lower it to a 5. It was gross, and the more I sat on it, I was like, I don't like this. The ending was funny though. I'll give it that. It was a unique ending. I would not recommend for anybody who has I lost my train of thought. Gentle stomach, I don't know. Someone who gets sick easy, I would not recommend it. So The Shift. This was a good movie, actually. I saw some people critiquing it. I apparently there's some controversy behind it too. I didn't know about it. Me and my family just saw it randomly. I was like, okay, sure, why not? I don't know about half the movies that I'm dragged to when it comes to them. I just go to them because my family wants to go see them. I'm like, sure. I liked it. Didn't know about the controversy at the time, but I enjoyed it. It was a good retelling of the story of Job, but in a modern perspective. I mean, I feel like an 8.5, again, is a little high for me. I may drop it to an 8, just because I've had more time to chew on it. But from what I did enjoy, it was a unique story. It was just, it was different, you know? I don't really know how to explain it without spoilers. It was well written. Some of the budget, or not the budget, some of the designs and choices could have been a little better, honestly. But I did like what was shown to me, and it taught a good lesson. I liked it. Honestly, I'm going to drop it to an 8 out of 10, but still an overall enjoyable movie, especially considering it's, you don't get a lot of Christian films that are good. Let's be real here. Anyways, Fantastic Four. Never seen this movie before. Thought it was kind of interesting. I was just like, honestly, I don't have any real understanding of the Fantastic Four franchise. Never really grew up with them. Didn't know their lore or anything like that. So seeing it from that perspective, I enjoyed this movie. It wasn't a great movie, but I was just like, hey, that was fun. That was a good time. Wasn't as awful as everybody in the world seems to make it out to be. But you know, it was there. It was an early superhero movie that just happened. I mean, if I had the option to own it on Blu-ray, I would. You know, 5.5 out of 10 is still valid. Oh, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. We saw this for Christmas. I screwed up on the rating. That's supposed to be a 6.5 out of 10. Man, this was just... It was just a movie, you know? It's such a wet fart of a way to end the DCEU, you know? Like, there's... This franchise has been going for over a decade, and they're like, end it with Aquaman 2. You know, everybody's raving for that. And it just... Alright, so the best way... Spoiler warning. The best way I can describe this movie is the way that they end it is that Jason Momoa basically says... At a press conference at the end of the movie, says, I am Aquaman. And then he raises his hands up like he's freaking Iron Man. I was like, God, that just sums up the DCEU so much. You're just trying so hard to be Marvel. And it doesn't even fit within the context of Aquaman. Like, yeah, I don't know how Aquaman would react. Typically, I don't know his character all that well. But just in the sense of how, like, that was such a callback. There was such an obvious what they were trying to do. So besides that little part, the movie itself, it was enjoyable. Cinematics, I mean, the CGI was good. It was the story was entertaining, if not just very paint by the numbers. And it was fine, you know, 6.5. I feel like that's valid enough for it. Okay, so A Christmas Story. I know this is like an iconic part of like a lot of people's Christmas traditions. I watched this for the first time with my family, and it was stupid. Like, I'm sorry, maybe for the time it was good. I'm sure it was like, oh, this is such a unique way of telling a story, and I'm sure it was, but I was bored. It was not funny. There was a couple moments I laughed, and that was about it. And I was just like, I don't ever want to watch this again. How do people watch this on a yearly basis? Why does this have so much why does this have such cultural impact? Other than like a few moments, like the BB gun and the bunny outfit and the leg lamp, I don't understand why this movie has such a I can't say a following, but it has such a cultural impact, you know? That 3.5 out of 10 is still pretty valid to me. So Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. I do think this movie's a little overhated. Again, not a Fantastic Four guy, don't really know too much. So this is speaking from a very unknowledgeable unknowing on the topic. I thought it was okay. I thought it was good. A lot of CGI was, like, I'm pretty sure even for the time was bad though, so that was questionable. But other than that, I thought it was an okay movie. It was like, yeah, it's disappointing, especially for such a big superhero group, especially for fans, I'm sure, to get a 5 out of 10 kind of movie. But I mean, it wasn't this like monstrous failure that I've always been told it was. I was like, I thought this was gonna be boring or stupid. It was okay. But yeah, 5 out of 10. Okay, so this is the last movie of the year for me. I literally was watching this as I was working on a project. It was like literally less than an hour and a half before New Year's happened, or an hour and a half before 11 o'clock on New Year's Eve. So I was rushing and writing some stuff down for a friend. And so I was watching this movie in the process. So even though I wasn't fully engrossed, almost all these movies I was fully engrossed in. But this one, I've seen it so many times, like no joke, I've seen it 8+ times at this point. So I already knew it. The movie holds up very well for me. It's mainly a nostalgia factor for me, I'm sure. But it's still just, it's a cute movie. It's got good music. The writing's cringe sometimes. That's kind of just the whole series. Some questionable dialogue at times, just because I'm like, what? It's poorly executed sometimes. I don't care. I love this movie. I will watch it every year I am possibly able to. I've watched it 8+ times in the time span that has come out in 2018 to 2023. So I'd say I like the movie. It's a 9.5 out of 10 for me, strictly out of my biasy. Good movie though. So I watched 87 movies in total through 2023. So now it's time for us to hop into the movies. Oh wait, sorry, it's time for us to hop into the TV shows that I watched through 2023. Don't worry, they're significantly less. So what I said for the TV show 2023 thread. I said the same movies year in review, but also I need to watch more anime. I'm getting left behind in the Wii world. I want to get more involved in that, you know. Yeah. So these are all the TV shows that I'll watch through 2023. Ooh, Remake Our Life. This was a fun little surprise. I just came across it randomly, and if you're like an art student at all, this is something that you would probably very much resonate with. It's a very nice slice of life about working together with other people on a group project and just the connections between people on it. I would recommend if that's something that interests you. It's a good show. The 8 out of 10 is very valid. Judge me all you want. It's justified. I hate the show. I just want to be clear on this. It's not a good show. It makes me suffer the whole time I watch it. I want to strangle the protagonist every time I see him on screen, but I can't stop watching it, you know? It's like watching a train wreck. You just can't look away. It's such a bad show. And that's all I can say. I'm still going to give it a 6.5 though, because I keep watching it. So it's got to have some kind of validity to it. More Than American. Okay, this was a cute show. Like, I genuinely really liked the show. It was an 8 out of 10 kind of good show. Like, I wish it didn't have as much ecchi as it did. I feel like that kind of limited it and hurt it a bit. But other than that, it was a very nice show. I enjoyed all the character interactions. If you want a good slice of life romance that kind of dives into not a unique scenario per se, but something a little different, I would recommend it. It's very good. I liked all the characters and all the conflict that went on in between them. I do have some biasy here. The Walking Dead is one of my favorite shows, probably of all time. The first half of season 11 was kind of rough. It was fun, but it was, you know, it happened. And then the second half was good. It was definitely very enjoyable. But I would have liked to have seen a bit more nostalgia callback in the sense of characters. I feel like it just kind of didn't lean in as heavy as I would have liked it to. I understand the reason why is because they're having some like major spin-off series, which so far all the ones I've watched are great. Well, I shouldn't say all of them. World Beyond sucked and Fear was... I'll get into Fear later. But honestly, still one of my all-time favorite shows. Amazing. Season 11 wasn't the best. I think I'll drop season 11 to a 7.5 out of 10, but the overall series is still a 10 out of 10 for me. I love this show. It's so good. Like, one thing a lot of people don't like, one of my favorite things about this show is, I guess you could argue this is a spoiler, so close your ears if you don't want to hear it. But one of my favorite things about the show is just how much it teaches about forgiveness, because that's like a huge factor about the show. It's always like you're trying to be the better person. Even when the good guys kind of turn into villains, they are still all about forgiveness and trying to be redeemable. And I really like that about the show. You don't see, like, it's kind of putting a moral in your... It's teaching a moral without it being preachy and obnoxious. It's doing it in such a... not a subtle way. It's not really subtle because it's a part of the story, but it's... I really like that. I think it's something that needs to be put in more TV. Is like, I like morals that are taught in a non-intrusive way. So 10 out of 10 series, love it. If you haven't watched The Walking Dead, you're missing out. Alright, so Agretzko Season 4. I had a weird situation with Agretzko because I watched Season 3 and 4, I was like just randomly, and then I found out that Season 5 was literally coming out like a week later. I didn't even know. Season 3 was so good. I loved it. It was such a fun season. Like, her whole pop star era going on there. Like, you would think, oh, this is stupid. Where'd y'all even pull this from? Nah, it was good. Like, you need to watch it. And then season 4 was okay, you know, it wasn't as good, but it was still enjoyable. Honestly, I'm going to drop it to a 6.5 out of 10, just because I don't remember too much about it, honestly. So season 3 is a 9 out of 10, and then season 4 is a 6.5 out of 10. Agretzko, if you haven't watched it, it's so good. Like, don't judge the art style. The art style is very misleading. It's an adult show about a red panda that has anger issues and relationships and gets drunk and all that. It's set in Japan. It's all about Japanese work culture. Give it a chance. I promise it's not as weird as it looks. Well, it's very weird, but it's like it's good. It's just a good show. All right, Uzaki-chan wants to hang out. So this was, I liked it. Season 7, I'm gonna draw, Season 7. Season 2, I really liked Season 1 when it came out. I watched it during COVID time. So, just based off the character, I know it looks questionable. It is not an ecchi as much as people think it is. Like, literally, Season 1, there's like maybe 2 scenes that are even remotely ecchi. And then that's it. And it was like, oh, that wasn't bad at all. It's a cute show. I love the relationship between the friends. Sorry, I'm talking too much about Season 1. So Season 2, it dives more into Uzaki-chan's family more than I would have liked. I would have liked to see more interactions between these two. Like, I know the going into her family kind of gives more, kind of gives us more detail about her so we can see the relationship grow, but it spent too much time on her family I didn't particularly care about. I wanted to see more of them, not of her family. But I think if they do a season 3, I'm very much going to watch it. I'm going to drop this to a 6.5 out of 10 just because I was so disappointed in how much they spent on her family. Cyberpunk Edge Runners, I'm sorry, it just wasn't for me. It was so overhyped. It was good. Gorgeous animation, some impactful emotional moments. It was so forgettable for me. Other than like a couple like key moments, specifically the ending, I'm gonna drop it to a 7 because it was forgettable, and I don't know, it just didn't have that much of an impact on me. Other than I love that one song. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was literally in my top played on my music rap at the end of the year. Such a good song. But other than that, like, the show was good. But I feel like an 8 out of 10 that was me being like a little generous because of the hype. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Now, if it was longer, if they gave me a few more episodes and expanded on some of the character relationships, I might have liked it more. Oh, I even said this. I was going to give the show a 7, but the ending bump. Okay. That's funny. Okay. So I guess the ending did have a bit more of an impact on me than I remember. But see, the fact that I don't remember it that much, I feel like that makes my 7 to 10 still valid. I would have liked some filler episodes. I know some people hate filler. I like filler because it gives me more time with the characters to make an emotional connection to, and I feel like everything was just happening one after another, and it didn't give me time to make those connections with these people. So I'm bumping it down to a 7 out of 10. Still great, just not what I wanted. This one, if you guys know the anime Future Diary, it was good. I liked Future Diary. This one's nowhere near, like, I know a lot of people hate Future Diary now. I don't really know why. Maybe if I rewatch it, I'd know why. But right now, it's like a modern day Future Diary in its own way. I'm gonna drop it down to a 6, just because it's, like, not only is it forgettable, I like almost don't remember a gosh darn thing about it. So I do remember wanting to see a season 2 though. And some of the character, there just wasn't a lot of characters there. It was more so these guys were driving forces to tell the story more than actual people within a story, you know? Like, that's a huge factor I have when I judge a show or whatever I watch. Because if the characters are just there to push a narrative rather than tell the narrative, I don't like it all that much. So I'm dropping Darwin's Game Season 1 to a 6 out of 10. Okay, Agretzko Season 5, final season. This is the political, like, it gets weird. They go into this whole politics thing, not in like a controversial way, but like they're running for president or running for I don't remember what role they were running for. I think it was mayor or something. Anyways, they were running for a political office. It was interesting just to see how it all tied together. Honestly, it does not harm the show at all. It makes the show still very much worth watching. It's just unique to where how many places this show likes to jump around to. It's not afraid to. It takes some generic concepts and spreads them out in such a unique way. It's fun to watch. So I feel like my 8 out of 10 is still valid for season 5. And overall series, I kind of want to bump it up to a 9 just because I have such a, I don't know, something about it just really resonates with me, but I don't have a valid way to describe it. So we're going to stick to a 8.5 out of 10 for Agretzko. All right, Girlfriend. Oh man, this is the lowest rank thing I've given. This is scum right here. This is garbage. Do not waste your precious hours on this planet Earth watching it. It was such a bad show. I hated every second of it, but by the time I realized how much I hated it, I was too deep in to stop, so I felt the need to finish. And it was just, don't watch it. I literally gave it a 0.5 because there was a couple jokes that made me laugh out loud. But I felt bad after I laughed at them because they were such bad jokes. It's also just insanely forgettable. So I'm going to drop it to a 0.5 out of 10 instead of a 1.5 out of 10. 0.5 out of 10 show. Girlfriend Season 1 is trash. Don't watch it. Outer Banks Season 1 through 3. We're going to start speedrunning this because this is taking longer than I thought. Season 1 through 3. It's not a bad show. It's not a great show. It's a very turn your brain off kind of show. I enjoyed it. I do want to see Season 4 still. But it's not a great show. There's so many flaws with it. It just has so many little goof-offs and like inconsistencies with the characters. It's very much just a teen drama show. That's something like you'd see on CW or something like that. But I don't know. It has its charm in its own way. Okay, Tomo-chan is a girl. Cute anime. I really like the ending because it kind of differentiates itself from most anime. Tomboys immediately, just, huge plus right there. 8.5 out of 10, still valid. Rick and Morty season 6, probably the best season we've gotten in a while from this show. Honestly, the show hasn't been good in a long time, so that may be a little generous. It was okay. I'm gonna drop it to a 6.5 out of 10 because I don't remember it. I just remember liking it. I don't remember any episodes from it. So 6.5 out of 10 for season 6 of Rick and Morty. Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro, Second Attack. This is season 2. Honestly, pretty big dud compared to season 1. Season 1 was so much better. I do want to see a third season, but I just can't stand these spineless male pro tags that's become a trend among these kind of anime. Like, I don't know why I keep watching these. Uzaki-chan, Miss Nagatoro, Rent-A-Girlfriend. I can't stand these spineless losers who keep getting girls. It's so embarrassing because it's clearly a fantasy kind of show. But, like, I mean, their relationship is cute because, like, he does grow a spine a little bit. But I'm gonna give season 2 a 6 out of 10. I think season 3 will probably step up their game, but we'll see. This was a nice surprise of an anime. I won't talk too much about it, but it was a very fun, unique idea about this uncle who gets isekai'd and to another world, gains a bunch of magic powers, and then comes back to the real world, has all his magic powers still, and tries to get famous off of becoming a YouTuber. It's interesting. It's worth a watch. It sounds kind of tacky because it's based off of social media, but no, it's a good one. Watch it. Trapped in a dating sim, the world of otome games is tough for mobs. Season 1. Okay, very average. Like, the concept was unique, but literally it felt like it was purposely being written poorly, and it's like they didn't care. Like, it was like interesting to watch, even though you knew it was poorly written. I'm gonna drop it to a 4, but I feel like it's still worth a watch. I don't really know how to describe it. It just had this insane level of cheese that was on purpose. Like, they didn't care that it was cheesy. Okay, this one was kind of fun. Actually, I don't remember this one all that much. Harin-san wa Hakamai. I don't remember this one, actually. Humor was pretty boring since the joke was... Oh, yeah, that's right. They kept telling the same joke, like, almost every episode. I was like, I'm done with this. This was going to be a 5.5, but the last 5 episodes, by being pretty interesting, doing the unexpected. I don't remember it, so I'm going to drop it to a 5.5, because I don't remember what was so surprising about the last 5 episodes. I do remember it doing something different about the relationship that you wouldn't expect, because, like, this kind of anime, you're like, oh, it's going to do something very predictable. It didn't do anything predictable, but I don't remember what it did, so we're going to drop it to a 5.5 out of 10. Okay, this was cool, but it suffered from such the adult animation curse, American adult animation, to where, like, oh man, it's adult anime, that means we have to swear and have sex and drugs, and that's the entire basis of our comedy, and that's it. Besides that, it's very nicely animated, a lot of style, the story is interesting. I'd like to see a season 2 if they get to it. If you can look past the obnoxious, like, forced R rating, it's worth a watch. Oddballs season 2. Okay, so hear me out. I liked season 1. I thought it was like a 6 out of 10 for season 1. It had a couple of moments I actually laughed out loud. I was like, hey, this was okay. It wasn't garbage like you'd expect it to be. Season 2 was, it was bad. I'm dropping this to a 1 out of 10. Like, it literally took me over half a year to watch this stupid show. It was so boring. It was bad. Like, there's only 8 episodes, too. It was cringy. It just wasn't... It was not a valuable piece of media from... I wish I did not watch it. Season 1 was so much better. But yeah, Oddball Season 2, 1 out of 10. Oh yeah, this one, I watched this one in one night because I had to stay up all night because I was about to go on a business trip, and I was going to be traveling the whole time, so I needed to stay up all night so I'd sleep the whole way there. It was good. Like, it was this very nice, like, slice of life story that had some fantasy elements, but then it turned into this weird, like, serialized story almost. Like, it was serialized from the beginning, but like it was more episode by episode, and then it introduced the serialized concept, and I just kind of lost interest at it. It was very stylish though. Like, I love the colors used at nighttime, and it was fun. It was visual candy, but it was honestly, besides that, it was just an okay show. I'll keep that. No, I feel like I'm just okay is not valid. It was above average for sure. I'm gonna keep that 7 out of 10. But I think I'm being almost generous with that. Okay, right here. This could have been such a good story, an anthology of horrors by I'm forgetting his name, Junji Ito. I don't want to say it wrong, so I'm not gonna. Anyways, great concepts that just kind of fell flat. They just weren't as scary as you would hope them to be. And I feel like Japanese horror has so much validity to it that just anime never captures for some reason. I was disappointed. This is another one that failed. So 5.5 out of 10 is pretty fitting. I almost want to drop it to a 5 out of 10. Just because of how disappointed I was, but that's not valid criticism for the show itself. So we're going to keep a 5.5 out of 10. For Junji Ito's Maniac Japanese Tales of the Macabre. I gotta start reading the title, I keep forgetting. First Love. Oh yeah, so this is my first K-pop. This is my first K-drama I've ever watched. At least on my own. I've seen little snippets with friends before, but this was the first one I've ever sat down and watched all the way through. It was a fun little romance. It was a little confusing at first, because some scenes kept swapping between future and past. Present and past, and I got a little lost in some aspects, but once I figured it out and kept going, it was good. Ending was a little rough and predictable. I'm gonna drop it because the ending was predictable. Or not the ending, the general show was a little predictable. I'm gonna drop it to a 7.5 out of 10. Still good, worth a watch. So Sonic Prime Season 2, it was better than Season 1. I mean, let's be real here, none of these are really seasons. It's one show that they just chopped up and said, here's Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3. Anyways, Season 2 was better than Season 1. Honestly, the only good thing I can say about this show is how Shadow is portrayed. And the fight scenes are amazing. Like, I am not one to care about action scenes all that much. I'm more for the story than the action, but I love the way they're choreographed. They're so well done. Like, the team behind them, I'm pretty sure is the same team that does the Lego Ninjago fight scenes, so you know they're experienced and they're very good. But other than that, I hate the way Sonic is portrayed. I can't stand the Egg Council. The concept is wasted as a whole. Like, yeah, everyone's sick and tired of the whole multiverse storyline and all that, but I feel like with Sonic, like, instead of they went the generic route. They're like, all right, we're doing a multiverse story, so there's going to be a pirate Sonic, a jungle Sonic, a Metro City Sonic, or not Metro, but like a city Sonic. There's not variations of Sonic, but there's variations of other people from the Sonic world. But what they could have done was, instead of that, we could have, like, yeah, it's a little generic at this point, but I still would have rather seen a Sonic multiversal story to where we're seeing other variations of Sonic, to where we're seeing Sonic X Sonic, Adventures of Sonic, SatAM Sonic, Sonic Underground, every variation of Sonic there is. But no, we just get a bunch of generic copy and paste characters, and it's such a disappointment. Like, Season 2, just for the, like, everything, I feel like I was being really generous with the 7 out of 10. The more I sit on it, I want to drop it to I'm giving it a 5.5 out of 10. I'm sorry, I just can't get behind this version of Sonic at all. It's such wasted potential. Besides the fight scenes in Shadow, I don't like the show. Oh, I also really like Nine. Nine's a cool character. I'm really hoping Season 3 changes my mind, but we'll see. So Sonic Prime Season 2, 5.5 out of 10. Oh, okay, so I watched the entirety of The Amazing World of Gumball, at least Season 1 through 6. Supposedly Season 7's on the way. It was a good show. Besides Gumball just being kind of obnoxious occasionally because he's just a jerk, it was a good show. It's just one of those, like, pop culture stains that not enough people seem to talk about. Like, it came out, everybody loved it, and now it doesn't seem to have that much of an impact, I've noticed. I think more people should talk about how good of a show it was, though, especially just with the mixed media of arts alone made it how unique it was. Alright, still, 8 out of 10, I still feel like it's pretty valid. Transformers Prime. Okay, y'all. So I was talking about how I am very much not one to hand out 10 out of 10s for a show. I do not like Transformers. Transformers has never been a franchise I've cared about whatsoever. But I just, on a whim, decided to watch Transformer Prime one day. This is a 10 out of 10 show. Like, I am so mad I didn't watch this growing up as a kid, because it was, I would say, almost perfect. Like, there was not a single, the bad episodes were still great. There was, like, little nitpicks here and there, but they were not valid nitpicks, you know? They were just, like, things that, like, oh, that's whatever, just ignore that, you know? If you have not watched the show, you need to. It is so freaking good. 10 out of 10. Alright, so here's another garbage piece of anime I watched. I feel like the 5 out of 10 is being a little nice. I'm gonna drop it to a 4.5 automatically, just because it's not a good show. It's all you're doing is eating junk food anime. You're just watching the main hero get stronger and stronger in the most absurd way possible, and that's all that's interesting about it. None of the characters are particularly likable or dislikable. They're just there. They're cardboard cutouts there to push a story. So 4.5 out of 10 for Another World in My Smartphone Season 2. I will never understand how this got a Season 2 either, because like Season 1 came out like 5-6 years ago, I think, and then randomly in 2023 they're like, alright, Season 2 for this really mediocre show. This one was a bit of a disappointment for me. So how do you say it? Tonikawa Over the Moon for You. I liked Season 1. Season 1 was very cute. Season 2, I don't know what happened. The dialogue felt like it was written by AI. Like, everything just felt so generic, and I know I don't like using the made by AI insult all that much, because some people just don't know what they're talking about. But no, everything just felt like it was, like they just ripped it straight from another piece of media. It was so unoriginal. And I don't know, it just wasn't good. The dialogue felt like you were trying to flirt with an AI or something like that. I don't know. The character interactions were so unnatural and stupid. It was not good. I'm dropping this to a 4 out of 10. The only reason I gave it a 5 out of 10 is because I liked Season 1 a lot, but Season 2 was just bad. So I don't know how it is with some people. I've only seen one other person online say their opinion on Season 11 of Futurama. I liked it. It felt like the show never even went away. It felt like it was still going from when it picked up, other than like the story itself, like, you know, the quote-unquote canon story of Futurama. It got kind of mixed up there. But other than that, it felt like OG Futurama, and I enjoyed it. I'm very much looking forward to the new season. I wish this season had more episodes, though. It felt a little dry and lacking. But other than that, I thought it was great. 8 out of 10 for season 11 of Futurama. The Walking Dead Dead City, like, the concept alone was great, because it was Negan and Maggie having to work together to save Maggie's son. And like, that alone, that's a fantastic premise. Not only were they given such a great premise, they were so different with their cinematography in this. Like, the camera angles were unique. It was very, like, they were just not afraid to experiment with lighting or camera use. It was a good show just on that alone. But the story was also great too. See, the finale kind of fell a little flat, but it had a great lead up for season 2. I'm sure season 2 will be great also. Easy 8 out of 10. Okay, I rewatched all of BoJack Horseman. Don't recommend this for anyone below the age of 21, maybe even higher, honestly. A very mature show, but it goes into a lot of topics that are very interesting to see them dive into. I feel like my only real complaint, other than the just absolute degeneracy that goes on in it, that's kind of the whole point of it though, is that almost all the people here are awful people. You're supposed to not like them. The degeneracy that goes on, I feel like it was too experimental sometimes, because the story would get lost within the experimentation of the episode, because the episode would do something crazy and I'm just trying to see the story be continued, you know? That kind of irritated me a lot. But other than that, easy 8.5 out of 10. Great show. Really, sad ending. It's unique. Again, don't recommend for anyone. It may be a cartoon, but it's absolutely an adult show. My Tiny Senpai. This was a cute show. It wasn't my favorite. The ending, like, I feel like they were just purposely dragging it along. Like, oh, are they gonna get together? Will they not? It's typical romance bullcrap. And it was still fun. I liked it enough. I feel like 7 out of 10 is still pretty valid. This was a bad show. I just read the premise. I was like, oh, that's insane. I'll check that out. It's about this guy who he dies by saving this. He saves this Arthur, the person who writes books. He saves her at a coffee shop when she's about to get gunned down. He dies and reincarnates into a dog. She finds him, saves him. He lives with her. And then that's just kind of it, and things happen. Nothing that happens is particularly interesting, and it felt like they were trying to lead up into something interesting, but they never paid it off and just ended it. That may have been due to production issues, but the story just, it was not that great. I feel like a 4.5 out of 10 is still pretty valid, fitting for dog and scissors. Okay, so I'm still half and half on this. It was a good show. I really loved the animation, the music, and almost everything else about it, but the story. When this show was promoted to me, I was told like it was going to be the Scott Pilgrim series animated. That's what almost everyone wanted. When they blew our expectations from that, it was interesting, but it is not what I wanted from a Scott Pilgrim series. I really wanted a Scott Pilgrim animated book series. That was what I've been wanting for decades. I've read this like 8 years ago. I read the series for the first time 8 years ago. I've been wanting it for an insanely long time. So when they disappointed me with that, it kind of hurt my expectations on this. Was it still good? Yeah, absolutely. I definitely enjoyed it. But it was not what I wanted from it. So it's like, if they somehow, I would love if they did like a quote unquote prequel, because this is technically a sequel. Not even technically, it is a sequel. I would have loved if they go back and like, hey, we did so great on the first one, let's animate the original series now. I would like them to, I just want to see the books animated, man. That's what killed it for me. If they did this, and if they made this afterwards, I would really like it. But it just kind of hurt it for me. 7 out of 10 is still very valid for me, though. I still enjoyed it. 7 out of 10. I wish I could have given it so much more, though, but it just didn't give me what I wanted. Smallville. I technically started watching this. This is kind of cheating, kind of not cheating. I watched this all the way in, I want to say 2021. I started in 2021, got to season 8, and then just stopped, because that's where my parents stopped. I grew up with them watching the show. I wasn't allowed to watch it with them because it's a pretty mature show, especially for when I was a little kid and it was still airing. So so I just randomly picked it up one day in 2021, 2022, one of those times. Pretty sure it's 2021. I picked it up. I was like, yo, this show kind of slaps. It's pretty good. I got all the way to 8, and I was like, you know what? I'll stop and I'll watch it with my mom and dad, because they stopped it around that time. I think it was season 9, not 8. Sorry. But then I was just like, after over a year and a half of waiting, I was like, you know what, I'm watching it. I watched season 9 and 10. I was like, this show is so freaking good. Other than like some, like, it's just a little too over-sexualized. It's kind of obnoxious how over-sexualized it is. But other than that, the story's so freaking good. I have never cared about Superman as a hero before, but this show made me love him. He's like one of my favorite superheroes now. So if you have not watched Smallville, you need to take the time and watch it. I feel like the only reason I deduced it to a 9.5 is because of how sexualized it is, but it's basically a 10 out of 10 show. I love it. This one is interesting. Masamune's Kun's Revenge R. This is interesting because I just randomly watched the first season as like just a random suggestion from someone. I was just like, okay, sure, whatever. The concept was okay. It's about a fat guy, about a little fat kid who got bullied by the girl he liked when he was a kid. So he, as revenge, he gets freaking ripped and tries to make her fall in love with him so he can break her heart when they're older. She has no idea it's him. But then like it spirals, and then it gets. Season 2 was just really good. Like, you would not think season 2 to be so good, but nah, season 2 was so much better than season 1. It sounds absurd, but I'd recommend the show. 8 out of 10. Fear the Walking Dead. This is interesting. So I always see people just trash the show saying like, oh, it's absolute garbage. It's really not. It's just kind of... It's just different. Like, it wasn't going off of any basis like the original show was. The original show had the comics to go off of. This one was its own original story. And this, specifically season 8, it was okay. Felt a little clunky. It was rushed. It wasn't... I don't know. It felt like it wasn't the send-off it could have been, but it was... I guess it was what it was, you know? The overall series is a 7 out of 10, though. Like, yeah, it goes insane sometimes, and you're just like, what? And sometimes there's a couple seasons that are, like, with the original Walking Dead, I loved every season. Not a single season bored me. Fear the Walking Dead, some of them were like, oh, this is a little slow. I'm still going to keep watching, though, because I know it'll get better. And it did. The whole show is a 7 out of 10 for me. All right, Rent-A-Girlfriend Season 3. See, it's kind of funny that Season 2 and 3, I don't know if they came out the same year, but I ended up watching them at the same time. Season 3 was so much better than Season 2. It actually had a focused story. There was more going on. I was invested in what was going on. Like, yeah, the protagonist, you still hate him the whole time because he's a spineless loser, but, like, he's at least kind of building himself up as a, like, not a complete degenerate. It's okay. It's better than Season 2. I would still never recommend anybody watch this show. That's all I got. By the way, she's still the best girl. This one was a weird one. I just watched this one on a whim. I've noticed that's kind of just what happens to me a lot. Carol and the End of the World. It's It's like an experimental animation. This is another one. I should have put it. It's a heavy R rating. Like it's not heavy in the sense of, oh, it's constantly vulgar, but it like, imagine the end of the world and everybody's living their lives, so everybody just does whatever they want. So there's bound to be some nastiness that goes on. So I would not recommend anybody young to watch this show again. It was interesting to see it. It's a 6 out of 10 for me, though. It's just kind of, I don't know. I didn't care about any of the characters, but it was interesting to see it happen. You know, it was an interesting. It's 6 out of 10. My opinion hasn't changed on it. Oh, I didn't realize that was my last show I watched this year. What a dud to end it on for shows in 2023. I watched 38 shows in total in the year 2023. All right, so now that we've done shows, we're gonna do video games. What I said for video games was I made a small dent in my backlog, like nowhere near as much as I wanted to, though. I did get some variety in there with this year with a lot of games I had no intention of finishing, but did. Retro games are my focus for 2024 for sure, though. So I ain't got money to buy new games. Let's be real here. So we started out this year. I did this on stream. Ultra Despair Girls. Excuse me. I enjoyed it. But honestly, like, a lot of people made it out to be like, oh man, that's such an awful game. It's so intense. I was like, I mean, yeah, it wasn't as bad as everyone made it out to be. It was such an exaggeration of how awful it was. Indeed, it was awful. It was like, anyways, it's like a 7 out of 10. I feel like the more time I've spent away from it, I'd say it's like a 6.5 out of 10, just because the gameplay just wasn't that good. I mean, I still wish it was included with the trilogy or the bundle set on the Switch, just because I want the whole franchise on one cartridge, you know? But other than that, it's an alright game, you know? You ain't missing much if you miss this one. This was just a random game I found. I was watching YouTube and someone talked about it. I was like, oh, it's fun. It's like this weird 2D platformer Tetris game. It's fun. I played it for like 40 minutes and beat it. It's worth a shot. It's very unique. I would recommend it if you just want to try something different. It's fun for what it is. I was debating on putting this one on the list because it's literally like 30 minutes. The Dead Space remake in the PS1 art style. It doesn't really keep the PS1. It doesn't play like a PS1 game at all. It's literally just kind of in the art style of it. But it was cool for what it was. 7 out of 10. I forgot to talk about the ratings for this one. 7 out of 10 for Eggmania 2. Oh, the Resident Evil remake. It didn't do anything mind-blowing like the first game did. It didn't really break any new ground. But I mean, it was still great for what it was, you know. It did what it set out to do. I do wish it wasn't as modernized as it was in some ways, but like, I mean, I feel like my main complaint was the crafting system. It wasn't bad or anything. I just don't like crafting systems in my games. I feel like every game has a crafting system now and I'm sick of them, but it didn't really damage the game or anything. RE2 remake is still so much better, but an 8 out of 10 for RE4 remake is still solid. I played this randomly, just trying to clear out my 3DS collection. It was a good 3DS game. It was a good Kirby 3DS game, you know? It was a solid 2D platformer. 2D platformers don't really keep my attention all that well, so this one took a little while to grind through, but it was fun. I made my way through it, and it had some challenge. I was surprised. 7 out of 10. Little Nightmares 2, oh my goodness. Such a good game. I'm not 100% sure. I can't say if it's as good as the first game. I feel like the first game was significantly scarier, just by atmosphere and theming, but this one was still amazing. I can't wait for the third game. 8.5 out of 10 is very valid. Okay, don't like arcade beat-em-ups. I think they're boring. I only played this because Ninja Turtles. I'm glad I played it. It was really fun. Combat was good. Graphics were very nice. Only real issue is that it you just moved really slowly going up and down, and I think that, I don't know if character stats mattered all that much in this game, but I was playing as Mikey the whole time and that drove me nuts. I was just so slow. But other than that, 8 out of 10 game, still really good. I want to play the DLC still. Okay, so this is the fan remake of Link and the Faces of Evil. I know people hate this game because the CDI games, it's funny to make fun of how weird they are and all that. I had fun with this game. It was actually, like, if you're a Zelda fan or you just like playing weird games, I would recommend it. It's a good time. It's specifically the remaster, though. Don't play the original unless you're, like, insane or something. But it was a fun time. I would recommend anybody to play this who likes Zelda, or just interested in niche game history, I guess. Okay, so I actually did another little shameless promo. I did a YouTube video on this very topic, going into way more depth. Link in description and in the corner that links appear in. This is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Arcade Attack. It was supposed to be like an anniversary game for, I don't remember which year. I think it was 25th or 30th. Anyways, it was just kind of shameless. It was this weird crossover between a bunch of variations of the Ninja Turtles. It was like the 2003 series mixed with the to the Fast Forward series, and that was mainly it. But it also was mismatched because it was advertised as like an 80s kind of style. Looking at the box art, it was okay. It was not as bad as some fans made it out to be, but it was like a 1 to 2 hour game, and you just kind of you blasted through it. And once you blasted through it, that's about it with some crappy game modes alongside. The video I did on it is way more entertaining than the game itself. Totally go watch that. I literally fight the Ninja Turtles in hand-to-hand combat. Please click that video. Alright, so number 10. So this is funny. I literally just loaded this up because I was hanging out in my Discord server with some other people in there. And I was just like, what's a game I can beat in like 15 minutes? I found Spy Muppets Licensed to Croak. I was like, say less. it was a stupid mini game collection. It's pretty bad. It's ugly, but it's Muppets. 2.5 is pretty valid rating for it. I don't think I've gone over the ratings. 5.5 for Ninja Turtles is valid for this. It's not terrible. It's not great. The 7 for this is valid for sure. 2.5 for License to Croak. I could maybe push it to a 2, but I think a 2.5 is good. I actually own the PC version of this now because I found it in a thrift store. Alright, so then, of course, because I played that one, I had to play the original one, Muppets, I did the name wrong. I said Muppets, the On With The Show. Anyways, it's called The Muppets On With The Show. It was literally just a copy and paste of License to Croak, except reskinned, and with a different story. I think I like the boss fight just a little bit more at the end, so I gave it a 0.5 extra. And even though I think this is the first one and License to Croak was the sequel, so it's funny that the sequel was worse. But anyways, don't play these games unless you just want to say you completed a Muppets game, They're pretty bad. Yoshi's Island, man, I remember thinking this was the coolest game ever as a kid just because of the graphical style. Because I rented it from a Blockbuster. Playing it now, like all the way through, I was like, this game kind of sucks. The only really good thing about it is the Yoshi song that plays at the beginning, the one that everyone knows, and it's a good time. But other than that, I wouldn't recommend anybody play this game. I think I'd drop it to a 5 out of 10. Literally, the only saving grace for it is the song and the graphics. Everything else, I was pretty bored by it. I played it out of obligation because I was trying to finish it more than I enjoyed it. The Sonic Omens. Okay, people hate this game. I know that there's some reasons for the dev. I don't 100% know what it is, but just taking the game as its own thing. Besides the horrible voice acting, I liked everything about this game. Like the gameplay was clunky and messy, but it was a fan game, so I looked past it. I enjoyed it. The levels were rough. Some of the levels were great, and then others were like, oh my god, especially the plane levels, despise those. And then the tree level was a little rough, but once you figure it out, it's pretty easy after that. I love the fact that they added split screen. Like, you can play the whole game with split screen. That's so cool. The story was cool, too. I thought it was unique that they mixed in variations. They had the Sonic X style going on. It was interconnected to Sonic X. I thought that was cool. It had a good OST. There's a lot of valid good things about this game, and there's also a lot of valid bad things about this game. I'm sticking with my 7 out of 10 though. This is the second time I played it too, because the first time I played it was on a really crappy PC to where I could barely get 30 FPS, and it was laggy all the time. And then I played it in full res all the way up with 120 FPS kind of deal on my new PC. So I wanted to experience it a bit better. Make sure it wasn't clunky because of my old PC, which playing it on the new PC did help a lot. Anyways, it's a good time. I liked it. People should give it more of a chance. And just play this multiplayer with someone. It's fun. This was a nice little hidden gem of a game. The Suffering on the PS2. I was like, man, this was a good game. The stories were a little complicated and a little too much at times. Some of them, I don't know how I solved them. I just got kind of lucky with figuring them out. But the combat was fun. The story was interesting. It's an 8 out of 10 game. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's a spoiler. You need to check it out. All right, this one is called Lumistis. I'm not too sure how to say this, but honestly, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a $5 3D platformer that's really good. Like, if you know the games Tori or Tori 3D, they're very much in line with that. Just high quality, short burst of gameplay, a lot of replayability. It's $5. You can't go wrong with this. Like, I highly recommend this game. If you like 3D platformers or a challenge, you gotta play it. It's great. That 8 out of 10 is very valid. Eternights. See, I bought this on a whim. I don't buy video games on a whim because I'm a broke boy. I can't afford that too much. But Eternights is very much a good game. I bought it day one. It had a good story, a little predictable at times, but still good. The romance sections were fun. It had good combat. Like, typically when games are a mixture of like dating sim, heavy story, anime, it's like turn-based RPG, you know, whatever. It's pretty typical. No, they went with like this Dark Souls-esque combat, and I think this game was literally made by like one or at least a few dudes. It's an indie game, which is really impressive, and it was a really good game. I really recommend it. It's not like the like ultimate video game ever, but for the price I got it for, I think it was like $30-40, and like the story, like, it has multiple choice endings too, which is really cool based off the girl that you focus on. The story is good. I recommend checking it out. 8.5 out of 10, well earned. So this is another fan game, Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit. At first, I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, man, this is the best 2D Sonic game I've ever played. This is so stinking good. But then I started playing it more as I beat the main game. Then I started playing as Knuckles. I literally played through it like 4 or 5 times. I played it with every new character unlocked. And I was just like, man, the flaws really started to crack and show as I kept going. I was like, good game, not my favorite game. It was a good playthrough, you know. It started at a 9, and then the more I played it, it kept dropping and dropping. And it was like 7 out of 10. I think that's valid. Just the fact that it's a fan game is very impressive. Has a lot of extra content they had no reason to add, and just added it for their own fun. It was great. I would still recommend it. It's a good game. Especially, I mean, it's a free fan game. You can't complain. This was a weird one. Mario in the Music Box Remastered. It had no reason to be Mario other than like there was already a nostalgic connection between the player and the game. Like, oh, I feel bad when these characters die because I know them already. If they were unique characters, honestly, there would be almost no, you'd be able to make no connection to the Mario universe outside of a few lines here and there. If it was original characters, the game probably wouldn't have anywhere near as much notoriety as it does. It's a good game though. It's fun. It's got a lot of unique endings. It's definitely dark. Not one I would recommend for anybody as above an adult age. So, you know, don't play this as a kid. Because it's Mario, it don't mean it's kid friendly. It's fun enough, you know. The remaster. I would recommend the remaster of the original just because there's way more art and stuff like that. Luigi's Mansion. All right, so we're on a scary Mario trend right now. I love this game as a kid growing up, but playing it now, it was fun. But I feel like it was very much like, go here, do this, go here, go do that. You know, there wasn't much to the game itself other than push forward. I liked it, but I think I'm going to drop that 7.5 out of 10 to just a 7 out of 10. Still good, but, you know, I feel like as I've chewed on it more, I don't think I'd play it again. Now, I was supposed to play the fan mod of this that added a bunch of reduced content and stuff, but when I played it, it wasn't working for some reason, so I had to play vanilla. I was already halfway through the game before the mod wasn't, before I was like, where's all the extra content? So yeah, I played vanilla. This one, honestly,
I mean, it's alright.
It wasn't. I feel like I've had more time with this. I'm dropping it down to a 5. It was just, it was there, you know. I played through it. It was okay. I just kind of wanted it to be over when I was done. This is an FMV game, by the way, like full motion video. It was just decisions. The concept was interesting, but full motion video games just don't really work unless you're interacting with characters and like having dialogue choices. There wasn't a lot there, so it was more of a point and click and a boring one at that. But I even solved the mystery like early on. I was like, oh, I figured out what the ending was pretty early on. So, you know, it's okay. I'm gonna drop that 6.5 to a 5 though out of 10. Ooh, this one, Detention. I played this one back in 2019, actually. I played the demo. I was like, oh, this is a good game. And then I bought it on Steam a few years, 2021, I think. I was like, oh, this is a good game. Played it, got scared, stopped playing it for a while, and then I decided to finish it this year. It was good. The OST was shiveringly scary. That's a weird way to put it, but very scary audio. The story was interesting. It took a bit of a weird turn, but I enjoyed it. You know, I didn't like the ending I got. It was kind of lame, but that was more my fault. I wasn't gonna play it again because like I find point and click games hard to replay just to get a new story ending or whatever. You know, 7 out of 10 is pretty valid for it. If you want a good spook, it's worth the playthrough. So this was Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. I gotta start reading the titles of these games. The last one was Detention. So Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase is literally just a Crash Bandicoot ripoff. It's so frustrating because it's fun for the most part, but then like the last 2 or 3 levels are just insanely difficult. I had to cheese my way out of the final boss by just using the rewind feature because of how insanely broken it was. I don't know how any kid could beat this game like through normal means. And then the pyramid level, I didn't cheese my way through that one, but that one was annoying. It was frustrating. But overall, the game's pretty fun. I feel like the 6 out of 10 is pretty fitting still. I would recommend it if you're a Scooby-Doo and or Crash Bandicoot fan. Pumpkin Jack, I was more intrigued by the concept than the execution. Like, a 3D platformer set in pumpkin time, Halloween. It was fun, but the more I played it, I was like, this is just kind of the same thing over and over. A similar story to Detention, to where I played it a long time ago, stopped, and then just picked it back up randomly this year. Excuse me, for Halloween. It was fine. It was good enough, you know. 7 out of 10. I'm okay with that. Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways, the DLC. It was just as good as the original remake game, but I feel like just because it was DLC and it didn't really offer anything new besides her hookshot, which was more of just a spectacle than a gameplay mechanic all that much. I feel like a 6.5. I replayed the game in a shorter time span. It was fun, but it was nothing special. So that 6.5 out of 10 is pretty valid to me. Super Mario Bros. This is my first time ever beating the game. It was a hard game. I had to save scum a good bit near the end, which I hate doing for retro games, but I was trying to beat this game in a timely manner, and I was getting so fed up with the last few worlds, so I save scummed. Nonetheless, really good game. 8 out of 10. You just got to be able to deal with some of that old school cheese, you know? Man, Sonic Superstars. I'm genuinely mad I paid full price for this game. I gotta remember that Sonic games go down in price pretty quickly for the most part. I gotta stop paying full price. Like you guys know, I love Sonic, but Sonic Superstars was bad. I was mad almost the whole time playing it, especially near the final boss. Every time there was a final boss, with Trip's final boss. Sorry, spoilers by the way. Trip's final boss, Sonic's final boss, and then the final boss. I was just frustrated the whole time. I was not having fun. It completely soured my experience. The game itself is okay. Like, excluding those final bosses, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. With those final bosses, a 4.5 out of 10. It damaged it that bad. I almost want to drop it to a 4, but I think that's disingenuous. The animation in it was amazing. I just love the addition of Trip. She's such a good character design. I like her character. I hope they use her more in the future. Not so much for gameplay mechanics, but just the character herself. I like her character. 4.5 out of 10. I'm sticking by that one. Sonic Lost World. For the longest time, I had it stuck in my head that I was like, I've played this game. I played through the first 3 worlds each time. I was like, I liked it. People are just mean about this game because it's different. And for the longest time, I believed that. This year, I still kept to it until I got to like the last 3 worlds of Lost World. I was like, oh man, I'm fed up with this. I'm so done. This was not fun anymore. It just kept, like, the game mechanics were clunky and the controls were obnoxious and just so much cheese kept happening that shouldn't have happened, like bugs and stuff. I was like, all right. There's some validity to it. I still kind of like the game. I don't think it's as bad as everyone makes it out to be sometimes, but it's not a great game. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. I did like the DLC worlds for Zelda and Yoshi, though, mainly Zelda, because those were cool. Had to mod those in through the PC version, though. This one was kind of cool. Propagation, I think I'm saying that right. Propagation Paradise Hotel. Imagine Resident Evil, but in VR, and it was specifically made for VR. It's a pretty short game. I think it was like 4 or 5 hours long. It was scary. Like, there were some moments where I was on edge, man. The ending was just... just an insane letdown. Like, it felt like the game was supposed to continue, and then the screen faded to black and ended. I was like, oh, that was stupid. What the heck? Overall, though, ignoring the ending being really dumb, it was good. I hated the pistol in that game, though. Like, your main weapon sucked. But you had to, once you got used to it, it was fine. 7 out of 10 is pretty valid for it. Ooh, Sonic Dream Team. I mean, it was a mobile game. I was mad that it was an Apple Arcade exclusive. Overall, it was good. It was fun. I liked the story. The everything that happened in it was fun. The level design was a little generic here and there in the sense of like theming, but that's fine. Overall, like for a mobile 3D platformer Sonic game, I feel like because it's stuck on Apple Arcade, so many people are missing out on this. I hope one day it comes to modern platforms, but as of right now, it's kind of disrespectful that it's stuck on Apple Arcade. One day. It's good though. It's a good game. The boss fight, I love the boss fight. It was so cinematic. They had no reason to go as hard as they did for what they did at the ending. I do have to say, this is no hate towards the actors themselves, but Cream and Rouge's voice actors were awful. Like, oh my gosh, it is unacceptable how bad they are. And I don't know if it's the voice actors themselves or the directions. And it's like Rouge's voice sounds nothing like Rouge, and Cream's voice is like irritating to hear. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to not be mean to the VAs, but like it's unacceptable what they allowed. It's just not good. 8 out of 10 for Sonic Dream Team though. Okay, so this was my game of the year right here. Tomboy Adventure. No, all right, jokes aside, it's a buggy mess of just pure cringe. Like, if you're ever caught playing this in like an unironic way, I feel bad for whoever caught you. Anyways, it's I mean, I had kind of fun in like a goofy manner. Had good music too, but it's a 3 out of 10, like in almost every way possible. I played it in VR. Apparently, you can't play it in flat screen very well because some parts just won't work unless you're in VR, which is funny, but you know, it's a random indie game I found as a joke. Oh, this one, I feel like I shouldn't have added this one, but I did, and I was like, it was too late when I added it. It was a random Game Jam holiday special Tori. It was fun. I 100% it in like every way. It was a quick like 1 hour, 2 hour game. Good 3D platformer. It's literally just one level with a bunch of unlockables. It was fun for what it was. 7 out of 10. This game gets too much hate from the retro game community, but at the same time, it's valid hate. So I was like, I think people exaggerate how awful it is. It literally only had 3 levels, and it took me like an hour to beat. The whole full playthrough is up on my YouTube. I mean, other than that, I kind of had fun with it. I think if it had more content, it could have been at least a 4. But for what was given, it got 1 point per level. It was just a clunky mess, but I don't know. I kind of liked it, even though it wasn't great. Sonic R, I love this game. I played it modded, and I played this a ton growing up as a kid. Like, I played Sonic Gems Collection on the GameCube. That's how I played it. 100% it multiple times as a kid. And then this full playthrough is on my YouTube as well. You can watch that. Beware, the first 30 minutes of it are muted because I didn't realize my mic was muted. Anyways, I 100% of this game modded, just some quality of life things. You know, added some better controls, better graphics, some little PC bug fixes. Good game though. I like it. I don't care what people say. The soundtrack is stellar too. 7.5 out of 10 is valid. And that was the last game I played of this year. 33 games for 2023, I'd say is pretty good. Not as much I would have liked, but I was a mixture of college and playing other games that just don't really have a finite ending. Kind of got in the way. I should have specified at the beginning that these are only games that I've completed. Like, I got to the beginning to the end. Not 100% completion, just complete from beginning to end. Alright, and on to our last thread, topic of the day. This one was books and podcasts. I started this one real late, so basically made no progress, but I think I'll start to read and listen a little bit more in 2024. Main plans are to get through at least a few books of the Bible and more adult-focused books. I almost exclusively read children books this year, so, you know, speaking of which, I read Five Nights at Freddy's. For my first book was Five Nights at Freddy's Fazbear's Frights #1 Into the Pit. It was a book. It was kind of okay. My 6.5 out of 10, I'm sticking to that. The 3 stories that were given to me were interesting. The first one was the best one, and the other 2 were just kind of okay. I didn't like the second one at all. It was very clearly aimed towards little girls, so I didn't particularly relate or care for that one. The first one was definitely the best out of the 3. This was an anthology, by the way. And then this is the second anthology. I should say that I read these without I knew there was Five Nights at Freddy books, and I was trying to read them because I just got done watching the movie. I was like, oh, I'll listen to the audiobooks for these, because I was curious. I didn't realize, I thought they only had the anthology series on the book service I use, but then I found out they had the actual individual stories too. So Five Nights at Freddy Fazbear's Frights 2 Fetch, it was a bit better. It was more interesting. I don't remember the other two stories all that much, but I liked the first one. I'm going to drop it. It was a 7.5 out of 10. I'm going to drop it by a 0.5 because I don't remember the other two stories in the anthology. But it was good for what it was, you know. All right, so then this is where I found out about the third book. Five Nights at Freddy's The Silver Eyes. This is I believe the canon book series. Actually connects to the series as a whole in some way. I liked it. It was nice to see like a more fleshed out version of the world. The story wasn't amazing, but it was good enough to keep me interested, and I wanted to read the second book. I'm currently going through the second book right now. And that was all the books I read this year. I wanted to include podcasts, but I was literally on the final episode, and I just never got to it. I never finished the final episode of I'm listening to Marvel's The Wastelanders. I listened to every season this year, except for I've listened to it multiple years. I've just never finished it, and I was on the last episode this year, and I never got to it before the end of the year. So yeah, that's kind of been my whole media consumption experience. It's been a bit of a mixed bag of variety. I think I leaned a little too heavy in some 7s here and there, but other than that, I think it was a pretty good year for the media I consumed. I don't know what the coming years for what I'm working on, what I'll be watching and reading and playing next will look like, but it'll probably be just as much of a mixed bag. Hopefully a bit more focused in what I do, but we'll see. So what did you guys think about it? Did you agree? Did you disagree with what I had to say about what I watched and read and played? If so, leave a comment below, and also don't forget to leave a like.